Chapter 1. Asterisk crack crack. Asterisk crack. Asterisk, no one could tell what kind of sound it was, but when they heard it, it seemed to be able to pierce through their bodies and rush into their souls, causing them to shiver uncontrollably in the cold and snowy night. The desolate north wind moaned as it blew through the world. Snow danced in the wind and split the sky into pieces. Layer upon layer of snow covered the land, and from afar, it looked as if the land was covered in silver. It was a desolate place. It was not midnight, but dusk, but the sky was as dark as night. It gave off a heavy feeling, as if something was pressing down on their chests, making it difficult for them to breathe. A huge outline could be seen on the silver land. It was a majestic city, and it looked as if a huge beast had arrived. In the center of the city, there was a towering altar in the shape of a pagoda. It was in the shape of a heptagon and was entirely black. It pierced through the clouds, standing tall and unmoving in the violent snowstorm. The whimpering sound of the wind blowing past the altar was mixed with this kind of crackling sound. It spread into the distance, carrying a primitive roughness with a unique charm. Is there still hope? Is there still hope? A hoarse mumble drifted out from the altar in the snowstorm. It seemed to have fused with the wind, and it became indistinguishable. If there is hope, then where is it? If there is no hope, then why did you let me see it? The voice seemed to have gone mad, and it was almost hysterical as it roared and echoed in the sky. At the bottom of the altar were countless figures wearing woven rush raincoats. From a distance, one could see that there were hundreds of thousands of them. There were men and women, and they surrounded the altar in a dense formation. They didn't move, but they seemed to be burning with passion. It was as if a single word from the person on the altar would be enough for them to give their all. The snow became even heavier. Since you let me see it, then there is definitely hope. But where is the hope? The hoarse voice on the altar was filled with bitterness and sorrow, and it did not disappear even after a long time had passed. Today, the bright yellow returns. The three-tie reclaim the land, the snow and wind come. The eternal creation, I will calculate the berserker's heaven once more. The voice suddenly became louder, and no one knew what method was used. The clouds in the sky changed color, and countless snowflakes suddenly stopped falling. Then, they all rolled back, whistling from all directions, and gathered together, causing heaven and earth to tremble. There was no more snow falling from the sky. All the snowflakes had gathered to form a huge, snow-colored dragon. As soon as the dragon was formed, it raised its head and let out a mournful roar. Everyone who heard it felt their hearts tremble, as if they were going to be torn apart by it. Waves of shocking blood seeped out from the body of the snow dragon, very quickly covering its entire body, causing the snow dragon to become a blood dragon. With a mournful roar, it struggled to charge towards the sky. Like a shooting star, it pierced through the horizon, as if it wanted to blast a hole in the sky, to open up a hope. Its speed was so fast that in the blink of an eye, it was endless. As booming sounds reverberated in the air, it seemed as if the dragon had crashed into some invisible barrier. The world trembled, and a buzzing sound spread out in all directions. The blood dragon once again let out a shrill scream of pain, and its body started crumbling layer by layer at a speed visible to the naked eye. At the instant it was about to completely shatter, the hundreds of thousands of silent people under the altar all formed seals with their hands, bit the tip of their tongues, and coughed out a mouthful of blood. That blood seemed to be guided by some sort of power and charged into the sky like a sea of blood. It charged towards the crumbling blood dragon, and once it fused with it, it caused the dragon's crumbling momentum to weaken, and it rushed even higher into the sky. The blood dragon flew higher and higher, and everyone's gazes gathered on it. But at that moment, the blood dragon shuddered and let out a shrill roar that spread through tens of thousands of leaves. It could no longer stop its body from crumbling, and it turned into countless blood-colored snowflakes that fell from the sky. From the distance, the world had already been dyed crimson. At the instant the blood dragon crumbled, a voice that was completely different from the shrill roar came from its mouth. Death! Death! There was an old man in a purple robe sitting cross-legged at the center of the top of the altar. His face was covered in wrinkles and brown spots. As he mumbled, he opened his eyes, but there was no light in them. It was clear that he was blind. There was a complete spine before him, and it was shining with a ghastly white light. He held a stone slip in his right hand, and it stopped on the 13th spine. He looked at the sky quietly with his empty eyes, and after a long, long time, he let out a long sigh. "Tell the king of you that I've done my best." As he spoke, his right hand, which held the stone slip, moved once again on the strange spine. It rubbed against the beast bone, letting out cracking sounds as it spread into the distance. There was a desolate air about him, and it fused with his voice, giving off a sorrowful loneliness and desolation. "As the elder of the great Yu dynasty, you cannot see the world that I see. You cannot see, I hope." Chapter 2. The mountain was a green mountain. An endless stretch of mountains stretched across the land like the spine of a dragon. There were many trees and plants on the mountain. There were also the sounds of birds and beasts echoing in the air. Looking from afar, the protruding parts of the mountain range formed 5 peaks. They looked like the 5 fingers of a human reaching out to grab at the sky. In the middle of one of the peaks, there was a large rock that was sunken in. A young man was leaning against the shade. Beside him was a basket that was piled up with some medicinal herbs. The fragrance of medicinal herbs wafted through the air. The young man had delicate features, but his body was thin, and he looked a little weak. He wore a small shirt sewn from the skin of an animal, and a white crescent beast bone hung around his neck. His hair was a little messy, and it was casually tied up with a straw rope. He sat there with a scroll made from dozens of beast skins in his hands. He was reading it with great interest, shaking his head. The Berserker tribe has an ancestor who created the world and has been passed down to this day. Those who hold the Berserker mark are known as Berserkers. They can fly in the sky and move mountains and oceans. Those with a Berserker mark can reach the heavens and can obtain the sun, moon, and stars. The young man read and sighed. Without a Berserker body, how can you become a Berserker? Berserker. Berserker. Su Ming. You can only gather herbs and become a normal doctor in the tribe. Becoming a Berserker who practices the ways of the Berserker tribe is still a long way off. The young man laughed at himself. He put down the beast skin scroll in his hands and looked at the sky in the distance. He had read the beast skin scroll countless times. He could not say that he could recite it backwards, but he could at least recite it. The sky is round, the earth is square, as if there is no end, as if there is no end to it. Su Ming mumbled as he imagined the world and the scroll in his head. The sky gradually darkened. He could see dark clouds looming at the end of the horizon. The mountain breeze that blew over also brought along a wave of moisture. When it landed on the many plants and leaves on the mountain, it made rustling sounds. The moment he saw the dark clouds in the sky, Su Ming's spirits lifted. The elder's prediction was right. There really is dark dragon saliva today. Su Ming's eyes shone brightly. He quickly stood up and stuffed the beast skin scroll into his bosom. With his left hand, he grabbed the woven basket beside him and slung it on his back. With one swift movement, he grabbed a rope made of grass and climbed up the mountain. From afar, the young man's frail body seemed to burst forth with an extremely tenacious strength. He was like an ape, and with a few leaps, he had already climbed over 100 feet. The dark clouds in the sky rolled over, accompanied by rumbling sounds. It was as if the wrath of the heavens had descended upon the mountain range. The dark clouds connected the heavens and the earth, making everything pitch black. In the blink of an eye, they drew closer and closer. Su Ming climbed even faster. Almost at the instant the dark clouds spread out, he was already several hundreds of feet away from the top of the mountain. There was a strange rock protruding out of the ground there. It looked as if it was formed naturally, and there were numerous holes the size of fists in the middle of the rock. The strange rock looked like the head of a giant python that had fused with the mountain and was entrenched in this place. Below the strange rock, there was a cone that looked like a fawn. It looked shocking and rather strange. Moreover, because it was a protruding part of the mountain, it was almost as if it was suspended in the air. It was very difficult to climb over it unless one could fly. Su Ming grabbed the rope with his left hand and brought out a small bottle from the woven basket on his back with his right hand. He bit on it and slowly moved his body towards the direction opposite of the strange rock. He moved several dozens of feet until the rope in his left hand was tilted. He held onto the wall of the mountain with his body pressed against it. He lifted his head and looked at the dark clouds in the sky. His eyes were bright, and he did not move. After a moment, the dark clouds covered the sky. Thunder rumbled in the sky. The sound was deafening. The wind raged and blew so hard that the mountain range looked as if it was about to be uprooted. Su Ming's fingers that held onto the wall of the mountain turned white in the midst of the wind, but he did not move an inch. There was a determined look in his eyes as he looked at the sky. The wind grew stronger and blew at the plants in the mountain range. The sound was like the roar of a giant beast. It also swept up the countless dried branches and rotten leaves on the mountain range, causing the sky and the earth to be filled with leaves and plants that danced in the air. There were even some large pieces of dried branches and small beasts that were swept up by the wind. As they spun around, they were flung far away. Their shrill screams of pain were also drowned out by the sound of the wind. Su Ming did not last long in the face of the violent gust of wind. The entire sky was covered by dark clouds. As thunder roared, rain the size of beans poured down. At that moment, the entire world seemed to have turned into a world covered by a curtain of water. The rain continued falling, and the rain grew heavier. Su Ming continued holding onto the drenched rope tightly and stuck himself against the wall of the mountain. He let the rain drench his entire body, but he still did not move. He stared at the protruding rock that looked like a fong under the strange rock that looked like a python. Su Ming did not know how much time had passed, but the rain continued to pour. The world was covered in mist, and the fong rock that Su Ming was staring at slowly oozed out a black liquid as it was washed down by the rain. The black liquid fused with the rain and turned into a stream that flowed downwards. When Su Ming saw this, delight appeared in his eyes, but he still did not move. When the black liquid that flowed out gradually became sparse and eventually turned golden, Su Ming's eyes focused. Without a hint of hesitation, he let go of the mountain rock with his right hand. When his body slid down, he immediately took the small bottle from his mouth with his right hand. The rope he held in his left hand was already slanted to begin with. As he let go of his right hand, his entire body seemed to be swinging up, and he charged towards the protruding fong rock with the rope at an incredible speed. Due to the fact that the angle of the rope's slanted angle was incredibly great, and he had an accurate grasp of his position, Su Ming had already arrived next to the seemingly suspended fong rock in the blink of an eye. He held the rope in his left hand and the small bottle in his right. The moment he got close, he quickly placed it under the fong rock, and during the moment the rope stopped swinging back and forth, he filled up half of the bottle with the golden liquid. Yet at that moment, he heard a piercing screech. For the 5 black centipedes that were as thick as an arm and 5 feet long crawled out of the numerous fist-sized holes on the strange rock. They pounced ferociously on Su Ming, who was still floating in midair. Su Ming was not surprised. Almost the instant the centipedes appeared, he immediately let go of the rope in his left hand and fell down at an incredible speed, avoiding the centipede's attack. Xiao Hong. Su Ming fell rapidly from midair. The wind was as sharp as knives, causing his body to stiffen. Even if he managed to avoid the centipedes, if he fell, he would immediately turn into minced meat. Yet he did not panic. He saw a red blur grabbing a rope from the cliff beside him and charging towards Su Ming's falling body. In an instant, it closed in and grabbed Su Ming. The red blur was a small red monkey. It was baring its teeth, but there was intelligence in its eyes. The man and the monkey landed on the cliff with the rope. It was also the spot where Su Ming had been reading. Su Ming's eyes were filled with nervousness. He immediately put away the small bottle he had been holding. Xiao Hong, we have to run. I snatched too much dark dragon saliva this time. What are you holding in your hands? As Su Ming spoke, he saw a small black stone in the monkey's claws. Caution immediately appeared on the little monkey's face. It placed its claws behind its back and let out a few screeches. Su Ming saw that they were running out of time and did not say anything else. He immediately took a few quick steps forward and jumped down. He grabbed onto the ropes and flew down with the little monkey. Behind them, the sound of hissing rose into the sky. They saw several black centipedes chasing after them along the rock walls. They were like many black lines sliding down the rock walls, chasing after them relentlessly. The red monkey bared its teeth and continued screeching at Su Ming. As the red blur flashed, it would occasionally turn its head back to look at the centipedes chasing after them. Its eyes were filled with fear and anger. It's not the first time we've run away like this. Those dark dragons don't dare to go down the mountain. Stop pretending. Same rules. I'll give you half of the dark dragon's saliva. Su Ming's words sounded lazy as he ran. As expected, the moment he said those words, the monkey immediately smiled. It was obvious that everything was just an act. The man and monkey were extremely familiar with the mountain range. For some unknown reason, the centipedes did not dare to go through certain parts of the mountain. They chose to go around those parts instead. Because of that, Su Ming and the monkey might not be able to run as fast as the centipedes, but they could still occasionally jump down and grab a rope. After a few jumps, they went down the mountain and disappeared into the forest. As expected, the centipedes did not dare to go down the mountain. They screeched for a long time before they climbed back up the mountain, unwilling to give up. The dark clouds came quickly and left just as quickly. After a few hours, the mountain range returned to normal. The dark clouds rolled and spread into the distance. Su Ming and the monkey walked out from the edge of the forest. The sky was already dark. They could see the faint light of a fire in the distance. That was where Su Ming's tribe was. You drank half of the dark dragon's saliva I gave you, and you still want more? Su Ming was drenched when he walked out of the forest, but he did not mind. He looked at the little monkey that was following behind him with a faint smile on his face. The little monkey was very intelligent. He found it by accident when he entered the mountain 3 years ago. They had some conflicts, but in the end, they became good friends. The little monkey blinked and scratched its face. There was a hint of struggle and hesitation on its face, but it quickly handed over the black fragment in its hands to Su Ming. It growled a few times, expressing its desire to trade for the dark dragon's saliva. All right, I'll give you some more, but I don't want this stupid stone. You can keep it. Su Ming smiled and took the small bottle from the basket and gave it to the little monkey. The little monkey quickly grabbed the bottle and drank a mouthful. There was an intoxicated look on its face. Its body swayed a few times, and it let out a drunken burp. It threw the black stone fragment and the small bottle to Su Ming and disappeared into the forest with a few leaps. Su Ming looked at the half-empty bottle and smiled. He did not mind and put it back into the basket on his back. He looked at the black stone fragment. Chapter 3. It was a normal stone fragment. It was only the size of a baby's palm and had an irregular shape. Besides some natural patterns on it, there was also a small hole in the middle that looked like a pendant. However, there was nothing special about it. It was very normal. The only strange thing was that when Su Ming held the stone fragment, he felt warmth from it. It was as if there was a wave of warmth flowing into his body, making him feel comfortable. Su Ming looked at it carefully, but after looking at it for a while, he still could not find anything. I heard from the elder that this place used to be the land of the Fire Berserker tribe a long time ago. If that's the case, then this item might contain some of the power of the Fire Berserker tribe. That's why it makes people feel warm. Not bad. Su Ming untied the crescent bone circlet around his neck and put the stone fragment into it before hanging it around his neck again. The stone was pressed against his chest, and the warmth became stronger. Time to go home. The young man took large strides and quickly ran toward the bright lights in the distance. At this moment, he did not notice that the stone fragment in his chest had a faint light that flashed for a moment before disappearing. As he got closer, the faint light became clearer before Su Ming's eyes. He could see that it was a tribe surrounded by walls made of many giant trees. The area was not big. There were only about a few hundred people living there, but in Su Ming's eyes, the place made him feel warm. Faintly, Waves of lively cheers could be heard. Through the gaps between the rows of giant wooden walls, one could see a huge bonfire in the center of the tribe. There were many tribesmen around it, and even some women in the tribe were dancing in front of the bonfire. The tribe's gate was also made of giant logs. When it was opened, it would usually be held up by a few ropes. Now, it was tightly shut, and there were a few burly men standing on it. They wore beast skins, and their skin was incredibly rough. There were eerie white bone necklaces hanging from their necks, and bone earrings on their ears. They looked incredibly valiant, and they stared at their surroundings with bright eyes. When they saw Su Ming running towards them from the distance, the men grinned. "La Su, the elder has been looking for you for a whole day. Why did you only come back now?" "It was raining just now. Did you go to steal Dark Dragon's saliva again? The elder is looking for me? Throw the rope down. I got a good haul this time." Su Ming ran a few steps and arrived at the foot of the gate. He patted the basket on his back proudly and shouted loudly, "Come on!" As a rope fell from above, Su Ming grabbed it and climbed up agilely. In the span of a few breaths, he reached the top of the gate. He saw the tribe members on night watch and smiled. He quickly walked down the stairs by the side. The boy is agile and he's brave. He dared to go to Dark Dragon Mountain alone many years ago to gather herbs. Looks like he'll be the tribe doctor in the future. It's a pity that he doesn't have a berserker body, or else he might become a berserker doctor like the elder. Once Su Ming entered the tribe, he ran all the way to the houses made of grass and trees around him. Whenever someone saw him, they would call him La Su out of goodwill. The name La Su was not just for him. It referred to all the children in the tribe who had not gone through the second berserker's awakening. Not far away, there was a little girl about 5 or 6 years old outside a tent. She was looking at Su Ming. There was a sweet and innocent smile on her young face. She held a small, white beast the size of a palm in her arms. The beast looked obedient and docile. It looked like a white pom-pom. "Brother La Su, did you get something for Pippi?" The little girl giggled when she saw Su Ming. "Tong Tong, here you go." Su Ming laughed and ran towards her. He took out a few berries from his bosom and gave them to the little girl. As the little girl laughed happily, Su Ming came to the center of the tribe. He saw a large number of tribe members surrounding the bonfire, laughing and chatting with each other. There was a wooden fence around the bonfire. There were many large pieces of roasted meat on the fence that were oozing with oil. The fragrance of the meat wafted through the air. There were a few girls in the tribe nearby. When they saw Su Ming running towards them, they smiled and greeted him. To this tribe, the handsome Su Ming was different from the other tribe members in terms of body size. Almost all of the tribe members were much bigger than him, and the girls were no exception. He squeezed out with great difficulty and grabbed a piece of roasted meat that was giving off a nice smell. As he chewed on it, he ran forward quickly. In the front of the crowd, there was an old man who was not dressed in beast skin, but in coarse linen clothes. This old man's hair was braided in many small braids, and he looked extremely old. However, his eyes were quite charming, making people feel as if they were about to be sucked into them with just a glance. He must be someone of high status. He was speaking in a low voice. There were a few tribe members around him. They listened and nodded respectfully. When he saw Su Ming running towards him, a smile appeared on the old man's face. He nodded and gestured for Su Ming to sit by the side. He continued talking to the tribe members. When the tribe members saw Su Ming, a smile appeared on their faces. Dark Mountain Tribe may be a small tribe, but we are still a true descendant of Dark Mountain Tribe. This is the birthday of the elder of Windstream Tribe. I was friends with him in the past. We can't be impolite, the old man said slowly. It's a pity that Dark Mountain Tribe was split up hundreds of years ago. Now there are only 3 branches left. Or else Dark Mountain Tribe would have been a middle-sized tribe. When we ruled over the area, Windstream Tribe would have been affiliated to us. But now, the person who spoke was a man in his 40s. He was the tribe leader of Dark Mountain Tribe. He was big and strong, as if he was filled with an explosive power. There were 9 teeth that were as thick as fingers on the bone ring around his neck. There was also a barely discernible mark on his face. The mark looked incredibly ferocious, as if it was a ghost. However, It was indistinct, as if it could not solidify completely. Su Ming looked at the mark with envy in his eyes. From the beast skin scroll, Su Ming knew that it was an incomplete berserker mark. There was no one in the tribe who had the ability to solidify their berserker mark. Even the elder was only at the 9th level of berserker blood. Even so, the elder had become one of the most powerful berserkers in the tribes around Dark Mountain. The only ones who could compare to him were the other two tribes that had split up in the past, Black Mountain Tribe and Dark Dragon Tribe. It's all in the past. There's no point in bringing it up. Without a powerful berserker in the Transcendence realm protecting us, we won't be able to become a middle-sized tribe. The death of the two ancestors of Dark Mountain Tribe who had reached the Transcendence realm was the root of the split. I've been training for so long, but I still can't break through the 9th level of the blood solidification realm. I can't reach the 10th level, and I can't even reach the 11th level, which is the limit. I can't draw a completely solidified berserker mark, and it's difficult for me to transcend. The old man in the sackcloth sighed and spoke slowly. Oh well, you can leave now. Prepare the gifts. Tomorrow, Shan Hin, as the chief of the hunters in Dark Mountain Tribe, you will lead the team. The old man stood up and cast a glance at the middle-aged man standing beside the tribe leader of Dark Mountain Tribe. He then turned around and left the place, walking into the distance. The middle-aged man's face was calm. When he heard the elder's words, he immediately bowed and obeyed. Su Ming quickly followed behind the elder, and they left the bustling place around the bonfire. The old man did not speak along the way. He only walked quietly. Once the cheerful voices behind him gradually disappeared into the distance, he arrived at a house made of plants and went in. The house was not big, and the interior was simple. Once he entered the house, the old man sat down cross-legged by the side and cast a glance at Su Ming, who followed him in. You went to gather Dark Dragon's saliva again? Now that he was alone with the old man, Su Ming was filled with respect towards the elder who had watched him grow up. He put down the basket on his back, picked up the small bottle, and gave it to the old man. With your agility, those dark dragons won't be able to hurt you. But it's better if you don't go there. After all, that place belongs to Black Mountain Tribe and Dark Dragon Tribe. Dark Dragon saliva is useless to me. You can keep it to nourish your body. The old man looked at Su Ming kindly. Su Ming nodded and put away the small bottle. Over the years, he had drunk a lot of this. It was also because of this that he had such an agile body. Over the years, the elder also brewed some medicinal soup for him. Even if he did not possess the berserker body, he was still much stronger than a normal member of the tribe. There are 3 more days before the awakening of the Lassus. I remember that you're already 16 years old. You need to worship the statue of the god of berserkers. The old man looked at Su Ming and spoke slowly. The statue of the god of berserkers in Dark Mountain Tribe was inherited from the real Dark Mountain Tribe. It may not be the main statue and cannot compare to the statue of the god of berserkers in a middle-sized tribe, but it is still very powerful in the area. Su Ming was silent for a moment before he nodded. Don't go out these few days. Rest well. 3 days later, you'll go to the awakening with them. The old man spoke and closed his eyes slowly. Su Ming stood there for a moment before he left quietly with the basket. He walked towards the house that belonged to him not too far away. He would never forget the time when he and all the other children of the same age in the tribe surrounded the statue of the god of berserkers and went through their first awakening. As a member of the berserker tribe, they had to go through 2 initiation ceremonies in their lives. This was the awakening. One was when they were 7 years old, and the other was when they were 16 years old. At the same time, the elder in the tribe would also use the power of the statue to choose a person with a berserker body. Su Ming sighed. Bitterness rose in his heart. He longed to become a berserker. The descriptions in the beast skin scroll made him obsessed since he was young. However, reality was cruel. When he worshipped the statue for the first time when he was 7 years old, it was clearly shown that he did not have the berserker body. He did not have the right to practice the berserker way. Berserkers were the foundation of the world. Only by becoming a berserker could one laugh above the heavens and become a truly powerful berserker. From the beast skin scroll, Su Ming knew that there were many tribes in the world big and small. Each tribe had their own different statue of the god of berserkers. This was the foundation of a tribe. It was also a must for their descendants to become berserkers. If a person could sense the statue and understand it, then they would naturally receive the inheritance of the berserker way. They would not need anyone to teach them. They could train on their own. However, if they failed when they were 7 years old and 16 years old, then it meant that nothing could be changed. Su Ming had always been uncertain. When he did not see the answer, he looked forward to it. Yet now, there were only 3 days left until the last time he tried to understand the statue. He was afraid. Well, I succeed this time? Su Ming quietly returned to his house and sat down, daydreaming. Chapter 4. Late at night, Su Ming lay in his house and looked at the darkness around him. He could not fall asleep for a long time. The elder's words echoed in his ears, causing the things that happened 9 years ago to appear in his head. Su Ming let out a long sigh and sat up. He pushed open the wooden door of his house quietly. A cool breeze blew at his messy hair. The wind was very cold, as if it had arrived with the moon and landed on the ground. It was quiet around him. Only a few faint neighs could be heard coming from Dark Mountain in the distance. Most of the tribe was dark. Only the bonfire in the middle of the tribe had some sparks. There were also some torches on the wooden walls around the tribe. In the middle of the night, the crackling sounds of the torches burning could be heard. Su Ming lifted his head and looked at the sky. The moon was bright and the stars were sparse. It was very bright. The river of stars seemed to last forever. Su Ming's eyes were filled with confusion. The people in the tribe are very nice to me, but I look different from them. Perhaps this is related to my failure in worshipping the statue of the god of berserkers. If I don't have a berserker body, then I can't practice the ways of the berserker. I can only stay here for the rest of my life. I can't go out, and I can't see the world described in the beast skin scrolls. Su Ming sat down quietly and leaned against the house. He looked at the sky, and the confusion in his eyes became stronger. At that moment, the sound of a song suddenly echoed in the tribe. There was a hint of sadness in the song. It seemed to have fused with the moon and melted into the land of Dark Mountain tribe. Su Ming frowned. His confusion was broken by the sound of the song. He did not need to get up to look. He knew that it was Lu Di playing his song again. Lu Di was a low-ranked berserker in the tribe. His favorite thing to do was to play the strange song. The song was very sad. Every time Su Ming heard it, he would feel sad. He did not like it. The berserker tribe has an ancestor who created the world and has been around for thousands of years. Those who wield the berserker mark can fly in the sky and move mountains and oceans. Those who possess the berserker mark can reach the sky and obtain the sun, moon, and stars. In the middle of the night in Dark Mountain tribe, a teenager looked at the sky and mumbled to himself amidst the song. At this moment, he didn't notice that the black fragment hanging on his neck had once again emitted a faint light that disappeared for a brief moment, in the blink of an eye. It was the 3rd day. As the awakening day of this generation's lost Sus of Dark Mountain tribe, the entire tribe was in an uproar since dawn. Almost all of the tribe members walked out and gathered at the square in the center of the tribe with their lost Sus. The ceremony of the Berserker's awakening usually took an entire day, especially when the lost Sus was 16 years old. It was like a coming-of-age ceremony, and at this time, the lost Sus who had completed the Berserker's awakening could even choose their partners. Waves of drumming with a strange rhythm reverberated within the tribe. Following the appearance of the drumming, lost Sus walked out from the crowd and stood in the center. There were more than 30 lost Sus who had completed the Berserker's awakening this time, and most of them were teenagers. Even though they were not old, their bodies were extremely muscular, and they exuded a sense of toughness. Even the girls were the same. Because of it, Su Ming stood out from the crowd. His handsome features made him stand out like a sore thumb among the crowd. Even so, the people here had long since accepted Su Ming's existence. Even if he looked different to them, they did not reject him. Instead, they accepted him as one of the tribe. Once they surrounded the lost Sus who were preparing for the Berserker's awakening, all the members of Dark Mountain tribe began performing a primitive dance. They danced to worship the heavens, using their bodies to show respect and worship to the heavens. Su Ming, I heard from the tribe that you went to Dark Dragon Mountain a few days ago and brought back Dark Dragon saliva. As the tribe members sang and danced, an honest voice came from beside Su La. It was a boy of the same age as Su Ming. His skin was rough and his body was strong. He was almost twice Su Ming's size. His eyes were bright, and he was looking at Su Ming with a silly smile. Su Ming smiled as he looked at the boy who spoke. The boy's name was Lei Chun, one of his few good friends in the tribe. I brought some back and went to look for you yesterday. Your father said that you went up the mountain with the hunting team. When the Berserker's awakening ends later, you can come to my place and take some with you. The boy called Lei Chin's eyes lit up. He quickly took a few steps forward and smiled like a fool. I could have come back earlier, but I ran into a mink deer on the way. You said that you needed the deer's blood to make medicine, so I followed you. I came back last night. Su Ming knew that the mink deer was incredibly difficult to kill, even though Lei Chun made it sound like it was nothing. It was also extremely dangerous. Su Ming felt warmth in his heart. As the two of them spoke, the joyous singing around them gradually quietened down. The crowd dispersed to reveal the elder of Dark Mountain Tribe. He wore a sackcloth and held a completely black bone staff in his hands. He was surrounded by a few other tribe members as he walked over and stood before the youths. The moment he appeared, the crowd fell silent. The youths' eyes were filled with respect. It was obvious that they were afraid of the elder. Worship the Berserker ancestor. The elder's eyes shone brightly as he swept his gaze across the crowd. His gaze paused briefly on Su Ming. As he spoke, he lifted the black bone staff in his right hand and waved it. Immediately, dozens of men rushed out from the crowd not too far away. Each of them carried a tied-up wild beast on their shoulders. The wild beasts were still alive. They let out piercing howls and struggled continuously, but it was to no avail. There were 49 wild beasts of different appearances. Before long, all of them were carried up and surrounded the youths. Their howls echoed in the air. When they gathered together, there was a faint power that could pierce through souls. However, there were people from Dark Mountain Tribe around them who held them down tightly, not allowing them to break free. The men standing beside the wild beasts did not hesitate. They all lowered their heads at the same time, and a sharp stone blade appeared in their left hands. They pierced through the necks of the wild beasts and cut off their heads. The howls reached their peak the moment the beasts' heads were cut off. It was so loud that it could shake the sky and earth. It made some of the 30-something La Sus who were preparing for the Berserker's awakening show fear on their faces. Su Ming's face was pale, but he gritted his teeth and endured it. He looked at Lei Chun from the corner of his eyes and saw that there was a glint in his eyes. There was a bloodthirsty look in his eyes. It was as if he was already used to it. He even seemed to enjoy it. It was as if he was a completely different person compared to his previous honest self. A large amount of blood gushed out like a fountain. It emitted a foul stench as it fell on the 30-something La Sus. It landed on their hair, their bodies, and the ground beneath their feet. You are lucky because there is no war between tribes. But at the same time, you are also unlucky, the elder said softly as he looked at the youths before him. When I was young, the Berserker's awakening at the age of 16 required me to cut off the head of an enemy tribe member and drink their blood to complete the Berserker's awakening. Compared to now, you're lucky. Unfortunately, you only saw the beast's blood and did not touch the enemy's head. The elder murmured. He looked deeply at the La Sus in front of him, raised his right hand that held the bone staff, and pointed it forward. At the same time, he lifted his left hand and clenched his fist before unclenching it. Immediately, a strong presence spread out from his body. That presence swept through the area and turned into a huge gust of wind that blew through the entire Dark Mountain Tribe. Lines appeared on the elder's face. The lines intersected with each other and turned into a picture that looked like a python's head. The python's head looked alive, as if it was real. It manifested on the elder's face and roared at the sky. It let out a soundless roar, and even though they could not hear it, all the members of Dark Mountain Tribe, including the strong tribe leader, could not help but shudder and take a few steps back. Dark Python Mark. This is the elder's berserker mark. Su Ming stared at the elder, dumbfounded. As he looked at the lines on the elder's face, his heart was filled with shock. The last time he saw this was 9 years ago. Now that he saw it again, the feeling he got was much stronger than before. The elder can destroy an entire tribe by himself. He's so strong, but he's only at the 9th level of the blood solidification realm. I wonder how strong those in the transcendence realm are, not to mention those who have reached the bone sacrifice realm after the transcendence realm. The beast skin scroll mentioned that powerful berserkers in the bone sacrifice realm are rare even in middle-sized tribes. Only those unimaginably large tribes would have a few berserkers in the bone sacrifice realm. Su Ming's heart trembled. His desire to become a berserker grew stronger. With the blood and the bodies of the beasts, I summoned the statue of the god of berserkers from Dark Mountain Tribe. The elder's thunderous voice interrupted Su Ming's thoughts. As the elder spoke, the carcasses of the wild beasts around them exploded. Their flesh and blood, the blood on the ground, and the blood on the bodies of the teenagers were all absorbed by an invisible force and gathered together in midair, turning into a giant ball of flesh and blood. Berserker's Awakening. The strong man beside the elder, the tribe leader of Dark Mountain Tribe, shouted. All the Lassus, including Su Ming, bit their tongues without hesitation and coughed out a mouthful of blood. Their blood rose into the air and was absorbed by the ball of flesh and blood. With a loud bang, the ball of flesh and blood turned into a black statue. It was a ferocious statue that was half human and half beast. It was filled with a barbaric and primitive air. It held a long dragon in one hand and a long spear in the other. Its eyes were filled with madness and bloodlust. The moment it appeared, even the sky darkened, as if it was being suppressed by its might. Dark Mountain Tribe's statue of the god of berserkers. Su Ming's heart pounded against his chest, as if it was about to explode. Yet at that moment, a faint warmth spread out from the stone on his neck and fused into his body, causing the uncomfortable feeling to disappear. That feeling stunned Su Ming. He was about to lower his head to look when the elder's voice echoed in the air. Come forward one by one and worship the statue of the god of berserkers. The moment he finished speaking, a teenager immediately took a few brisk steps forward and stepped right under the statue of the god of berserkers. He disappeared in an instant. Not long after, the teenager appeared at the spot where he disappeared with a gloomy face. He retreated to the side and did not say a word. Next, the person who spoke was the tribe leader of Dark Mountain Tribe. The man's face was stern as he swept his gaze across the Lassus. One by one, the Lassus who had undergone the awakening of the berserkers walked forward. Not long after they disappeared, they reappeared. When a girl stepped into the statue of the god of berserkers, the statue let out a crimson glow. Immediately, the tribe members were energized. Even the elder looked towards the statue. After the crimson glow flashed 9 times, the girl appeared. She has a berserker body. The statue of the god of berserkers flashed 9 times. This means that she has a berserker body. The girl's face was filled with joy when she appeared. Your name is Wu La, right? Very good. Come to my side. The elder smiled and nodded at the girl. Su Ming watched the girl walk towards the elder. He gritted his teeth and walked towards the statue of the god of berserkers. His actions immediately attracted the attention of the tribe members around him. Most of the people from Dark Mountain Tribe were kind and compassionate towards this teenager who was clearly different from them. Their gazes were trained on Su Ming until he stood under the statue of the god of berserkers. Su Ming took a deep breath and looked at the elder who was looking at him not too far away. He closed his eyes. The moment he did so, he felt an indescribable power enveloping his entire body. It was as if he had melted into mud. When he opened his eyes, everything around him had changed. He was no longer in Dark Mountain Tribe. He was in a small dimension. It was dark all around him. There was only a black statue floating before him that let out a crimson glow. The statue looked exactly the same as the statue of the god of berserkers he saw outside. It exuded a barbaric and primitive presence. Su Ming looked at the statue of the god of berserkers and fell silent for a moment before he bowed deeply towards the statue. He bowed for a long time. Bitterness appeared on Su Ming's face. He knew that if he had a berserker body, he would only need one bow to make the statue let out a crimson glow. However, everything before him was the same as 9 years ago. There was no difference. I can never become a berserker. Su Ming bit his lip and let out a long sigh. He turned around and was about to leave. Yet the moment he turned around, his body suddenly trembled. He turned his head back to look at the statue of the god of berserkers and was stunned for a moment. At the same time, he saw the shard on his chest that he had ignored emitting a piercing light. Chapter 5. At the foot of Dark Mountain, within Dark Mountain Tribe, almost all of the tribe members were gathered at the center of the tribe, looking at the lost Sus who were undergoing the awakening. Yet at that moment, the gigantic statue of the god of berserkers floating in midair suddenly shuddered, as if it was trembling. There was also a thunderous roar that came too suddenly, causing all the tribe members to be stunned. The elder's eyes flashed, and he took a few steps forward. He did not look at the statue, but immediately lifted his head to look at the sky. As he did so, a serious look appeared in his eyes. At that moment, more tribe members also noticed the abnormality and lifted their heads to look at the sky. In the sky, strands of black chi appeared out of nowhere. They gathered madly from all directions and quickly formed a huge vortex. The vortex was so big that it seemed to take up more than half of the sky. It covered the entire Dark Mountain. Even from far away, one could see the strange changes happening here. Once the vortex was formed, it rotated slowly and let out thunderous roars that echoed in the area. There were also countless arcs of lightning swimming within the vortex. Lightning flashed past and intersected with the thunder. The berserker ancestor has shown himself? Someone in Dark Mountain Tribe shouted out, but they immediately knelt down on the ground. Their faces were filled with respect and fear as they worshipped the sky. The only people who remained standing were the elder and the leaders of the tribe. Besides the elder, the other leaders were also panicking. The vortex in the sky rotated faster and faster. After a moment, a violent gust of wind swept through the land, causing the entire area around Dark Mountain to be completely enveloped by it. The floating statue of the god of berserkers trembled violently, as if it could not withstand the force of the vortex. At that moment, on the other side of Dark Mountain, there was a tribe that was similar in size to Dark Mountain Tribe. That tribe was known as Black Mountain. At that moment, all the tribe members in Black Mountain Tribe were shocked. In the sky above their tribe was a statue of the god of berserkers that was about 100 feet tall. The statue was completely black and did not have a human form. It looked like a lizard and was trembling non-stop as if it was about to collapse. Under the statue was an old man who was as thin as a skeleton. He wore a black sackcloth and had a dark expression on his face. No one knew what he was thinking about. The same thing was happening in all the tribes near Dark Mountain. Even tribes further away were experiencing the same thing. No one knew what had happened and why the vortex had appeared. Even the elder from Dark Mountain Tribe had forgotten about Su Ming, who had entered the statue of the god of berserkers to worship him. Within the statue of the god of berserkers in Dark Mountain Tribe, the dim light flashed and occupied the entire space around it. The entire place was covered in that strange light. Su Ming was also dumbfounded when he saw the statue of the god of berserkers that he had to worship tremble not too far away. It was as if the statue had been revived from its slumber. It gave him the illusion that the statue was made of flesh and blood. He could even see the ferocious statue of the god of berserkers trembling violently in the dark light, as if it could not withstand the light. The statue of the god of berserkers was half man and half beast. In its left hand was a giant dragon, and in its right hand was a long spear. Yet as it trembled, the primitive and barbaric presence changed abruptly, revealing a hint of terror that Su Ming did not know whether he was imagining things. Su Ming's mind was blank. He did not know what had happened. He did not know why things had turned out this way. He stood there stunned. His entire body was also enveloped by the dim light from the piece of the neck. It was as if he had fused with the space around him. As the dim light grew brighter, the world within the statue of the god of berserkers became completely dark. Su Ming only felt a loud bang in his head. It was as if an invisible force had broken through some kind of barrier. His body trembled, and a strange scene appeared in his head. It was a vast expanse of land. He seemed to be standing in midair and looking down. In his eyes, there were nearly 1,000,000 people densely packed on the ground. He could not see the end of it at a glance, as if there was no end to it. "Where is this?" Su Ming mumbled. The scene made him shocked. His mind was blank. The people were divided into two camps. At that moment, all of them were kneeling on the ground and worshipping the sky. Desolate drumbeats echoed in the air. It turned into an indescribable wave of sound that could touch the soul. All those who heard it would feel their hearts tremble. Su Ming saw nearly 100 gigantic statues of the god of berserkers around him in midair. All of them were different from each other. They exuded a primitive and barbaric presence. Their bodies looked as if they had flesh and blood, as if they were alive. They were also kneeling on one knee and worshipping the sky. Su Ming lifted his head instinctively. He saw, at the highest point in the sky, there were two people who stood tall. Their faces could not be seen clearly, but when Su Ming looked at them, he felt as if he was looking at the might of heaven. It was as if he had turned into an ant. They were like real gods. Su Ming could only see the long purple hair of one of them. That person lifted his right hand and swung it in the direction of the sky. The weather immediately changed, and in the blink of an eye, the bright universe turned into darkness. Countless stars shone, and as that person swung his arm, those stars seemed to have been sucked away from the sky. In the blink of an eye, they gathered beside the purple-haired person and turned into a galaxy of stars. When the person pointed at the river of stars with his right hand, it let out a loud rumbling sound and charged towards his enemy. From afar, it looked as if the sky was collapsing and the galaxy was collapsing. It was as if the power of the entire sky had descended on one person. As the rumbling sound echoed in the air, the purple-robed man suddenly lowered his head. He swept his gaze across the area and met Su Ming's gaze. There was a loud bang in Su Ming's head. He felt as if he was pushed by a huge force and was thrown out of the seemingly illusory world. Su Ming trembled. His vision turned dark. After a long, long time, when he regained his senses, he found himself still in the dimension within the statue of the god of berserkers. There was no light around him. It was as if everything was just an illusion. Su Ming's breathing was rapid. His entire body was drenched in sweat. He lowered his head and looked at the stone hanging on his neck. The stone was black. Besides the faint warmth coming from it, there was nothing unusual about it. Was it an illusion? Or is it the statue's memory? Just now, it was just as described in the beast skin scrolls, the stars in the sky. After a long while, Su Ming finally regained his senses. There was a dazed look in his eyes, and his mind was a mess. After a moment of silence, he stood up and bowed towards the statue once again, preparing to leave. However, just as he started bowing, cracking sounds immediately came from before him. A thin crack appeared on the face of the statue of the god of berserkers. As Su Ming bowed, the crack continued to spread. It was as if the statue of the god of berserkers could not withstand Su Ming's bow. If he continued bowing, it was as if the statue of the god of berserkers would crumble. This strange sight made Su Ming suck in a sharp breath. There was no longer a single shred of doubt in his mind about what had happened. It was definitely not an illusion. The moment the crack appeared on the statue of the god of berserkers, he heard mumbling voices echoing in his head. The mumbling voices made Su Ming's eyes filled with joy. That voice was what he had been dreaming of, the way to train in the blood solidification realm for berserkers. The art of berserkers could not be passed down by word of mouth. The only way was to pass it down through the statue of the god of berserkers. The existence of a statue of the god of berserkers was extremely important to a tribe. It was related to the tribe's survival. When the mumbling disappeared, Su Ming's body also disappeared from the world within the statue of the god of berserkers, and appeared in Dark Mountain Tribe. The moment he appeared, he saw all the tribe members, including the elder, lifting their heads to look at the sky. Su Ming's heart jumped, and he looked up. The giant whirlpool was still spinning, and a low, buzzing sound echoed in the air. "Su Ming, come to my side." The elder's voice rang in Su Ming's ears. Su Ming was nervous. He had a feeling that the abnormality in the sky was related to the stone on his neck, but he did not dare say it out loud. He walked towards the elder anxiously and stood behind him. Not long after, the abnormality in the sky gradually disappeared and everything returned to normal. No one asked Su Ming if he had succeeded. After all, if there was no light, it meant that he had failed. When the sky returned to normal, the remaining lost Sus once again worshipped the statue. When it was all over, 2 children were found to possess a berserker body at the age of 16 during the awakening. The 2 children were taken away by the elder. They would become important members of the tribe and would be taught some berserker training experiences. As for the other lost Sus, they left with disappointment. Su Ming was silent along the way, but his heart was pounding even faster. He wanted to tell the elder everything, but he had a feeling that this matter was too big, especially since there was a crack on the statue of the god of berserkers. In his hesitation, Su Ming walked back to his house. The elder in the sackcloth looked at Su Ming's back from afar, and a hint of doubt appeared in his eyes. Su Ming hurried back to his house and sat on the wooden bed. He lowered his head and looked at the irregular black stone on his chest. His eyes were filled with confusion. After a while, he was about to take off the pendant on his neck, but hesitated. He got up and pushed the wooden frame to block the door. This way, if someone came in, he would have time to prepare. Once he was done, he sat down again and held the stone in his hands, observing it carefully. Just what is this stone fragment? Xiao Hong was the one who found it. The wind must have been too strong, and some of the rotten leaves were blown away, revealing the stone fragment, and Xiao Hong picked it up. Su Ming's heart raced against his chest. He had a feeling that he had obtained an unknown treasure. The statue of the god of berserkers is about to crack. I wonder where Xiao Hong picked it up, and if there are any more. Su Ming licked his lips, his eyes filled with excitement. I originally didn't have a berserker body, so I couldn't inherit the ways of berserker training. But this thing has allowed me to learn the ways of berserker training. Su Ming took a deep breath and suppressed his excitement. He focused all his attention on the stone. He did not know how much time had passed before he felt sleepy. He grabbed the stone and fell asleep on the wooden bed. At this moment, the fragment was gradually emitting a dim light. It was very weak. Chapter 6. Brother. Brother, a delicate voice filled with a unique emotion echoed in Su Ming's dream. Brother, can you hear me? Brother, brother, I'm waiting for you. There was fatigue in the voice, as if it had been calling out to him for an eternity. It grew weaker and weaker until it slowly disappeared. As the voice grew weaker, Su Ming felt a heart-wrenching pain in his dream. It was as if the most important thing in his life was leaving with the voice. That feeling made him wake up with a start. Su Ming felt a chill run down his spine. He was drenched in sweat and his face was pale. He looked around as he breathed rapidly. The familiar sight before him gradually calmed him down. It was already late at night. There were sounds of birds and beasts roaring in the distance. Apart from that, it was quiet. Su Ming sat quietly on the wooden bed and stared at the stone in his hand. His expression gradually became hesitant. The dream just now was really strange, and I didn't feel sleepy before, but when I was observing the stone, I fell asleep without knowing it. That dream, that voice. Confusion appeared on Su Ming's face. He rarely dreamed, and he had never had a dream like the one just now. For some unknown reason, the woman's voice sounded incredibly familiar to him. All of this must be related to this. Su Ming lowered his head and looked at the stone in his hand with the help of the moonlight. He frowned. Just what is this thing? He hesitated for a moment before biting his finger. According to the description in the scroll, all the treasures in the world could only be activated after the user dripped his blood on it. Su Ming had never seen any treasure since he was born. This stone was the only one he had. He squeezed out a drop of blood from his finger and dripped it on the stone. He stared at it expectantly. Yet even after a long time, there were no changes on the stone. The blood on it did not show any signs of being absorbed. Su Ming scratched his head. Stubbornness rose within him. He got up and tried all sorts of methods, such as biting the stone, using his strength to pry it open, and even soaking it in water. Yet in the end, the stone remained the same. There was no change. The sky gradually brightened. Su Ming held the stone in his hand and fell into a daze. Time passed by. When the sky in the distance was completely bright and the sun rose into the sky, Su Ming suddenly had a flash of inspiration. When I first put this thing on my body, I felt warm. Perhaps this is its effect. Without any hesitation, Su Ming immediately put the stone back on the pendant around his neck so that the stone would stick close to his chest. Waves of warmth spread out and fused into Su Ming's body. It was as if the warmth had circulated through his entire body, making him feel comfortable. Su Ming took a deep breath, and the training method he had obtained from the statue of the god of berserkers appeared in his head. Berserker was the origin of the world. What Su Ming obtained this time was the first realm of the Berserker Way, the blood solidification realm. Su Ming learned from the beast skin scroll that the Berserker ancestor created the world and created men in ancient times. At that time, everyone was a god. Yet as time passed, the Berserker tribe, who were the descendants of legends, gradually lost their status as legends and were reduced to mere mortals. The method to train in the Berserker Way was also passed down from that time. However, it had been modified to make it more suitable for the current Berserker tribe. The first realm, the blood solidification realm, was divided into 11 levels. Its purpose was to stimulate the small amount of inherited blood of the Berserker ancestor within the Berserker tribe and make it gather together. The so-called Berserker body was in truth using the strength of the statue of the god of berserkers to find those who had inherited the blood of the Berserker ancestor within their bodies. Only they could walk further down the path of the Berserker tribe. The normal tribe members did not have much of the inherited blood of the Berserker ancestor within their bodies. That was why they were not acknowledged and did not have the right to become berserkers. That was why they would not receive the method of training from the mysterious being when they worshipped the statue of the god of berserkers. However, Su Ming was special. He still did not possess the Berserker body, but because of the strange stone, he received the method of training that was difficult to pass down through word of mouth. In most of the small and medium-sized tribes, only the descendants of the statue of the god of berserkers could receive it. Gather the Berserker blood within your body and awaken it. Then you can draw your own Berserker mark and step into the Transcendence realm. Su Ming mumbled. His eyes shone brightly. He sat down cross-legged and took a deep breath. Then he closed his eyes slowly and immersed himself in the method of training that he could not describe in his head. Time passed by. Soon, the sun rose high in the sky. The smoke from the chimneys in the tribe gradually dissipated. The tribe was bustling with activity. The members of the hunting team were led by a few leaders. Once they were dressed, they walked out of the tribe under the watchful eyes of their family members. They were going to hunt for food. Some of the younger Lassus, who were only 4 or 5 years old, ran around the tribe naked, playing happily. Their childish laughter would make the tribe members who heard them smile. Besides that, the elder was telling the 2 tribe members who had inherited the Berserker body about their experiences in training in the Berserker way. Berserkers were the most important force in a tribe. As the older generation of Dark Mountain tribe passed away one by one, there were only 22 berserkers left in Dark Mountain tribe. No one noticed that the door to Su Ming's house was shut tight that morning. As he sat inside, there was a faint blood-red glow around his body. If anyone took a closer look at the blood-red glow, they would be able to see that it was a blood vein under his skin. That blood vein was glowing with a red light, giving off a strange vibe. There was only one blood vein on Su Ming's body, and it was only faintly discernible. It could not be seen completely. After a long while, Su Ming opened his eyes and let out a deep breath. The more blood veins there are in the blood solidification realm, the higher the chance of reaching the Transcendence realm. But reaching the Transcendence realm is too difficult. According to the description on the scroll, only those who have transcended can be considered as berserkers. But those who have reached the Transcendence realm are powerful berserkers who can turn a small tribe into a middle-sized tribe. Most of the berserker blood in the elder's body has been condensed, but he still has no hope of transcending. I've never heard of anyone in the tribes who has reached the Transcendence realm, Su Ming mumbled. The Transcendence realm was too far away for him. What he cared about the most now was whether he could successfully reach the first level of the blood solidification realm. The first level of the blood solidification realm required 3 blood veins to appear. If he had a berserker body, then he would be able to manifest more than 3 blood veins the moment he started training. He would be able to reach the first level of the blood solidification realm in no time. He would not be like Su Ming, whose 1 blood vein was only faintly discernible. Even though the beginning was not smooth, Su Ming was not dejected. To him, as long as he could train, it meant that there was hope. While he was condensing the blood veins in his body, he could clearly feel the warmth from the stone in his chest increasing. This made Su Ming even more excited. He had a feeling that he had grasped the key to obtaining this treasure. 7 days passed by in the blink of an eye. During these 7 days, Su Ming did not step out of his house. He did not even feel hungry much. This puzzled him for a long time. After all, the scroll mentioned that when berserkers were in the blood solidification realm, they would be able to increase their appetite due to the circulation of the blood in their veins. This would allow their bodies to grow rapidly, and at the same time, they would be able to create more blood for their training. However, this did not happen to Su Ming. After some thought, he attributed it to the strange effect of the stone's warmth. During these 7 days, Lei Chen came by once to give Su Ming some mink deer blood and also took some dark dragon saliva. Lei Chen already had a berserker body when he worshipped the statue of the god of berserkers when he was 7 years old. Now, he had reached the 4th level of the blood solidification realm and manifested 23 blood veins in his body. He was one of the strongest in the hunting team. Before he left, he hesitated for a moment. He wanted to comfort Su Ming, but in the end, he looked at Su Ming and said one sentence in a muffled voice. Su Ming, we grew up together. I'll protect you from now on. If anyone dares to provoke you, then they'll be provoking me. Lei Chen. Once he finished speaking, he waved his arm and left with a silly grin. Su Ming watched Lei Chen leave. His heart was filled with warmth. Life in the tribe may have been simple, but it was not boring. Almost every member of the tribe had their own things to do, and they had to contribute their strength to the tribe. However, there were still some people who had berserkers who had died in battle in their families. They did not have berserker bodies and were not strong either, so they could not do much. That was why they were a little special in the tribe. Most of them just ate and waited for their deaths. They loved new things, and while the others were contributing their strength to the tribe, they had nothing to do. Half a month after the berserker's awakening ended, Su Ming once again carried the basket on his back. He greeted the other members of the tribe and left the tribe alone towards the forest in the distance. Once Su Ming stepped into the forest, it was as if he had changed into another person. He was filled with intelligence, and with one move, he charged forward like an arrow. With a few nimble leaps, he climbed up a big tree and sat down on the branch. A smile appeared on his face, as if he was very satisfied with his speed. I may not have completed the first level of the blood solidification realm, but my body is much more agile than before. Su Ming placed both of his right hands by his lips and whistled. The sound of the whistle spread far and wide, stirring up waves of echoes. Not long after, a red line appeared in the distance. The red line was so fast that it closed in on Su Ming in the blink of an eye. Su Ming grinned. The moment the red line closed in on him, he leaped forward. The red line let out squeaking sounds as it chased after him. Xiao Hong, let's compete again today. Let's see who will be the first to go up the mountain. Su Ming's voice was filled with joy. As he spoke, he leaped forward quickly. The red line behind him was the little red monkey. There was a look of disdain on the monkey's face. It was munching on a fruit in its hand, as if it did not want to compete with Su Ming seriously. It scratched its face and chased after Su Ming lazily. Yet as it chased after Su Ming, the little monkey's eyes turned red. The squeaking sounds became sharper, and it looked stunned. It threw away the fruit in its hand in exasperation and chased after Su Ming with all its might. Chapter 7. Su Ming continued moving up and down in the forest like an arrow. With his familiarity with the place and his nimble body, before long, he saw Dark Mountain in the distance. Once he passed through the forest, he would be able to enter Dark Mountain. For Su Ming, who had been gathering herbs in the mountain since he was young, every single blade of grass and tree exuded an aura that made him feel comfortable. The scroll said that when a berserker reaches the blood solidification realm, they will refine the berserker blood in their bodies and stimulate the power in their blood. It will allow their bodies to continuously grow stronger. I thought I would never be able to experience this in my life, but now I can feel it for myself. The first level of the blood solidification realm requires me to manifest 3 blood veins in my body. I haven't completed all of them yet, but my speed has already increased by a lot. Even my strength. Su Ming leapt forward and landed beside a big tree. He clenched his right hand into a fist and threw a punch at the tree. With a bang, a faint mark of a fist appeared on the tree. Su Ming's right hand also felt numb, but his face was filled with excitement. Just as he was feeling happy, a red shadow passed by him. It let out a series of proud squeaks. It was clear that the little monkey had caught up and overtaken Su Ming. Su Ming smiled and chased after the red shadow. He may not be slow, but he could not compare to the little monkey. If it was before, every time he arrived at Dark Mountain, the little monkey would definitely look at him with disdain and impatience. It would lie there as if it had been waiting for a long time. Yet now, 2 hours later, when Su Ming climbed up Dark Mountain and arrived at the waist of one of the summits, he saw that the little monkey still had a scornful and impatient look on its face. However, the sweat that had yet to disappear from its forehead showed that it had not been too long since it reached the summit. Su Ming smiled and patted the little monkey's head. He took off the basket on his back and stood on the big rock. He looked at the fog in the distance and took a deep breath. He liked standing here and looking ahead, even if he just took a few steps forward and he was about to enter a bottomless abyss. And if the mountain breeze blew past, it would make him feel as if he was about to fall. It was an incredibly dangerous place, but Su Ming had been climbing this mountain since he was young. To him, this place was like his second home. Little Red, what does the other side of the mountain look like? Have you been there before? Su Ming stood there, his bee-skin robes fluttering in the wind. His right hand instinctively touched the black stone on his chest. The little monkey by his side rolled its eyes and looked at the land in the distance. It did not bother itself with Su Ming and instead lowered its head to grab at its own fur as if it was trying to find something. When he saw the little monkey grooming its fur and ignoring him, Su Ming touched his nose and shook his head with a smile. He decided to sit down cross-legged on the ground. Little Red, this time, I won't be returning to the tribe for a while. I'll be staying here for a while. When you go out to play, remember to help me pick some wild fruits. The little monkey by his side immediately lifted its head with a surprised look on its face. It looked at Su Ming carefully, then beamed with joy and nodded its head. It usually only stayed with Su Ming for 3 to 5 days. Once Su Ming returned to the tribe, it would be the only one left in the forest. Now that it understood Su Ming's words, it was overjoyed. Su Ming took a deep breath and closed his eyes slowly as the mountain breeze blew against him. He was prepared to train here until he reached the first level of the blood solidification realm before he left. After all, Su Ming did not know how to explain what happened to him. Part of him wanted to hide it and not let anyone else know. He closed his eyes. Before long, a blood vein appeared on Su Ming's body. The blood vein let out a faint red glow, but the red glow did not flicker. Instead, it was very solid. Even the blood vein was no longer hidden like it was half a month ago. It was completely visible now. Su Ming may not have the talent to practice the ways of the berserker, but he had the determination to not give up easily. As he sat down, time passed by slowly. The sun rose and set. The fog in the forest gradually dissipated. The sounds of birds and beasts echoed in the air. It was filled with a unique calmness. In this calmness, Su Ming opened his eyes on the second morning. He moved his body a little. When he turned around, he found that the little monkey had disappeared. However, there were some wild fruits on the ground and some of the seeds that had been spat out. Su Ming picked up some of the fruits and ate about 10 of them. With his appetite, these fruits were enough to fill him up. He may like to eat wild fruits, but he did not like to eat too many at once. Once he finished eating, Su Ming sat down once again and immersed himself in the process of refining his berserker blood. However, this time, after only a few hours, Su Ming opened his eyes. There was a puzzled look in his eyes. The first blood vein has completely manifested, but I feel like I don't have enough blood for the second blood vein. Su Ming could not describe what he was feeling. It was as if the first blood vein had already sucked away most of his blood, and there was not much blood left for the second blood vein to manifest. This was contradictory and difficult to explain, but it was what Su Ming truly felt. Not enough blood. Su Ming scratched his head and fell in a deep thought. He did not know that berserkers, especially in the early stages of the berserker realm, not only needed a strong body to continue training, they also needed to take a lot of medicine. The medicine was used to quickly create new blood to boost their training and to manifest more blood veins. That was why the berserkers in the blood solidification realm would have an even greater amount of chi in their bodies as their power increased. Once their power erupted, their physical strength alone would be enough to tear apart a powerful beast. That was why they were known as berserkers. These were the secrets of the tribe. Only the tribe members who possessed the berserker body would know about them. Usually, when someone is injured in the tribe, they will lose a lot of blood. Their faces will turn pale, and they will feel weak. During these times, they will need to take some herbs to replenish their chi. Su Ming's eyes brightened. He thought about it carefully and immediately picked up the basket and jumped towards the side of the mountain. This time, he moved very quickly and returned in about an hour. When he returned, there were already some herbs with dirt on them in the basket. Once he cleaned them, Su Ming took out a stone bowl from the basket and crushed the herbs. He mixed it with some dew and mixed it together to form a dark green liquid. It gave off a strange smell. However, he was already used to the smell. After taking a few sniffs, he added some herbs into the mixture. When he was done, he took a deep breath and drank all the liquid in the stone bowl without hesitation. It tasted horrible. Su Ming frowned and forced himself to drink until there was nothing left. Then he sat down cross-legged and meditated again. When Su Ming opened his eyes late at night, he stared at the darkness before him and fell into a daze. There's some effect, but it's very small. The method should be correct, but there are still some parts that I'm wrong about. Su Ming frowned. He could not ask the elder about these things. He could only think about it himself. That's not right. Su Ming's eyes flashed. As the common healer in the tribe, he was in charge of gathering herbs. He remembered that every time he gathered herbs, the elder would take some of them away and send the rest to the tribe leader. He would store the herbs according to the tribe leader's instructions so that he could use them to make medicine to heal wounds. Dark dragon saliva was one of the herbs taken away by the elder. However, the dark dragon saliva was no longer useful to the elder, so he left all of it for Su Ming to nourish his body. There's still some dark dragon saliva left after I gave it to Lei Chun. Su Ming immediately flipped through the basket and found the small bottle. When he opened it, a familiar fragrance wafted into his nose. He shook it slightly and found that there was still a small amount of it left. Without hesitation, Su Ming placed the small bottle by his mouth and drank it all in one gulp. He then sat down cross-legged and immersed himself in the process of gathering his blood. Su Ming had eaten a lot of dark dragon saliva since he was young. Every time he drank it, he would feel dizzy and fall asleep as if he was drunk. But this time, it was the first time he drank the dark dragon saliva and trained according to the method of berserker cultivation. As the blood in his body circulated, he could clearly feel a cold current growing in his body and quickly spreading to every part of his body. As it spread, it gradually seeped into his blood, causing his blood to circulate at a much faster rate. It even seemed as if there was more blood in his body now. I knew it. Su Ming was excited. Just as he was about to continue circulating his blood, his body suddenly trembled. His eyes flew open, and there was disbelief and confusion on his face. How could this be? It's the elder. Within his body, Su Ming could clearly feel that as he absorbed the cold sensation, more cold currents appeared in every part of his body. These cold currents seemed to have existed for many years and had been quietly stored away, waiting for the day when the blood in his veins would activate and explode. The mouthful of dark dragon's saliva Su Ming drank was the opportunity for the explosion. Now, it was as if there were countless streams coming from all directions and merging into an ocean. This was a great gift that the elder had prepared for him since he was young. It was a great gift that the elder had always used dark dragon saliva to nourish Su Ming's body. If Su Ming practiced the ways of the berserker, then this power would be of great help to him during the early stages of his training. If he did not practice the ways of the berserker, then this power would be able to keep his body healthy. In his days, Su Ming seemed to see the elder's kind eyes, the gradually aging face, the high hopes and expectations placed on him, and the gloominess that had appeared half a month ago. "Elder," Su Ming mumbled. There was a muffled sound echoing in his body. The power of dark dragon saliva that had been accumulating for many years was pushing his blood forward, causing the second blood vein to immediately appear on his body and quickly solidify. After the second bloodline appeared, the third bloodline suddenly appeared. Even the fourth blood vein seemed like it was about to appear. Soon after, Su Ming's body grew stronger at a speed visible to the naked eye. The circulation and strengthening of his qi spurred his body to grow. If this continued, then he would no longer be thin and frail. Instead, he would be like the other berserkers, possessing a strong and sturdy body. Yet at that moment, the black stone on Su Ming's chest suddenly let out the same piercing light that had appeared in the statue of the god of berserkers. The moment the light shone, a change occurred. Chapter 8. As the dark light appeared, Su Ming could clearly feel a large amount of warmth surging from his chest and spreading through his body. In the blink of an eye, it filled his entire body. At the same time, it seemed to have fused with the coolness of the dark dragon's saliva and seeped into his veins. A clear roar came from within Su Ming's body. His body trembled violently as the fourth blood vein manifested. At the same time, a large amount of black filth seeped out of Su Ming's pores. There was also a foul stench spreading through his body. However, the stench gradually dissipated when the mountain breeze blew. With 3 blood veins, one could enter the first level of the blood solidification realm. Su Ming had successfully become a berserker at the first level of the blood solidification realm, yet he still kept his eyes closed. There were no signs of him waking up. As time passed by, the blood veins on Su Ming's body gradually solidified on the fourth blood vein. On the second morning, when the little monkey sniffed its right paw, it ran towards Su Ming with a smug expression. When it saw Su Ming covered in black filth, it was momentarily stunned. It scratched its head and circled around Su Ming a few times. It may have gained intelligence, but it did not know what was going on. It approached Su Ming curiously and wanted to pat him with its paw. Yet just as its paw was about to touch Su Ming, the dark light on Su Ming's body flashed once again. In the blink of an eye, it reached its peak, causing the dark light to cover Su Ming's entire body. The little monkey watched in shock as Su Ming's body disappeared in an instant. In the little monkey's eyes, Su Ming was devoured by the dark light. This scene immediately made the monkey widen its eyes and let out a piercing screech. With a flash of red, it rushed to the spot where Su Ming disappeared and searched madly for him. But in the end, it found nothing. It stood there stunned, unmoving. Su Ming did not know where he was. At that moment, he looked at his surroundings in a daze. The place was covered by a layer of white mist. He could not see too far away. He could only faintly see a mountain in front of him. He had just woken up. He remembered that he was on Dark Dragon Mountain, but he could not understand why he was here. Vigilance slowly filled his eyes. He first looked down at his chest, and his heart immediately thumped. The strange black fragment was no longer there. It's gone? Su Ming was shocked and bewildered. He looked around him once again before standing up slowly. His face was dark, and with caution, he walked towards the mountain shrouded in fog. The mountain was not too far away. Before long, Su Ming arrived at the foot of the mountain. He lifted his head and sucked in a sharp breath. This was indeed a mountain, but there were no plants on it. It was bare, as if it had been flattened. There were many totems carved on it. There were mountains and rivers, strange beasts, the sky. There were also some words Su Ming had never seen before. They gave off a primordial air, as if they were something from a myth. Almost at the instant Su Ming saw the carving on the mountain. Booming sounds reverberated in the air, and a crack appeared at the center of the mountain, as if an invisible force had sliced through it and opened the mountain. The crack was narrow, and Su Ming could not see the end of it. It was right under his feet. Su Ming hesitated for a moment, then gritted his teeth. Since he was already here, he did not know how to get out. He did not even know where this place was. There was a path before him, and he could only continue walking. In his heart, he had a feeling that this place had something to do with the black fragment, because he could clearly remember the warm current that came from the fragment. He walked into the mountain through the narrow crack. Su Ming felt as if he had walked for a long time. The path before him gradually widened. There were also strange carvings on the walls around him, but Su Ming could not understand them. There were pictures of herbs on the carvings, and there were also pictures of naked people with messy hair fiddling with herbs in an even weirder pot. Su Ming looked at the carvings until a door appeared at the end of his line of sight. He stopped outside the door. There were also carvings on the door, and there were pictures of 5 herbs carved on it. There were irregular lines shining with a dark light that Su Ming was familiar with. They surrounded the 5 pictures of the herbs in a circle and covered the entire door. There were also 15 small holes in the center of the door. They looked like they could be used to put things in. They were arranged in a circle. Su Ming frowned and looked at the door carefully. Once he looked around, his gaze fell on the 5 herbs on the door. This is iron core stamen. That's right, it's iron core stamen. This is like a joy leaf, but also like iris grass. And this is night glitter branch. I often gather this. What is this? It looks familiar. I've never seen the last one before. Su Ming looked at it for a while and hesitated. He did not know whether he should push the door open or not. Just as he was hesitating, he saw the lines surrounding the 5 herbs on the stone door suddenly move. The dark light on the door shone brightly. As Su Ming was stunned, the dark light appeared on the door and charged towards him. The dark light was too fast. Su Ming could not dodge it. With a flash, the dark light enveloped Su Ming. At the same time, a large amount of memories that did not belong to him appeared in Su Ming's mind. Those memories were like pictures that forced their way into Su Ming's mind, causing him to feel uncomfortable. There was an illusionary figure in those pictures. It was just like the pictures on the carvings. It was throwing herbs into a strange pot. Every single time it was thrown out, it would bring the herb to its nose and sniff it. There was a serious look on its face. Sometimes it would wave its right hand and a ball of fire would appear out of thin air and envelop the pot. The process was complicated. Even the strength of the fire was controlled. Su Ming had never seen this before. It would not be so troublesome in the tribe. Most of the time, they would just eat the herbs straight away. At most, they would just grind the herbs into juice and mix it with other herbs to increase the effects. Without knowing it, he was immersed in the memories in his head. After a long while, the illusionary figure slapped the pot with his right hand. Immediately, the flames around the pot disappeared. The person opened the lid of the strange pot. Su Ming immediately saw 3 green round objects the size of fingernails in the pot. Even though it was just a memory that had appeared in his head, Su Ming could still smell a faint medicinal fragrance wafting into his nose. He also stared at the 3 round pills, and he felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He was completely dumbfounded. He had been creating herbs since he was young. He could tell the quality of the herbs with just one glance. He had never seen these round objects before. He could not imagine what they were. The dim light surrounding his body disappeared and returned to the door. It calmed down, causing the numerous circular lines on the door to also stop moving. The moment the dim light disappeared, Su Ming's vision blurred. He felt as if he was being moved by a strange force. When his vision cleared, he saw a red shadow rushing towards him with a joyful cry. The red shadow was the little monkey. It was jumping around on Su Ming's body. Su Ming's disappearance had terrified the monkey. When it saw Su Ming return, it was instantly overjoyed. Su Ming was stunned. He immediately looked around and found that he had returned to the stone platform on Dark Dragon Mountain. He lowered his head and saw that the stone fragment that had disappeared was still there on his chest. All of this must have something to do with this item. Perhaps when I reached the first level of the blood solidification realm, I activated this item. That's why everything happened. Judging by Xiao Hong's reaction, I wasn't dreaming. My entire body had entered that place. Just where did this item come from? Why did it appear here? Su Ming could not help but remember the additional memories in his head. Quenching method, medicinal pills. After a long while, Su Ming mumbled the names of the various refinement methods he had seen previously in his memories. Scattering dusts. That was the name of the medicinal pill. It was also in Su Ming's memories. Su Ming mumbled. The picture on the door appeared in his head. His eyes gradually lit up. He may not have known what kind of place it was, but it was clear that the quenching method had piqued his interest. To him, the training of a berserker could not be separated from the herbs that could replenish qi. They needed to consume large amounts of herbs to make themselves stronger. Perhaps this quenching method would be of great help to his training. I've never seen a round medicinal pill like this in the tribe. Even the elder doesn't have it, or else I would have definitely seen it. But this round medicinal pill looks pretty good. I wonder how effective it will be once it's made. Then the next step is to look for the 5 herbs. Xiao Hong, have you seen these 2 herbs before? Once Su Ming made up his mind, he immediately summoned Xiao Hong. He picked up the stone and started drawing on the ground before it. Once he drew out the 2 herbs that he was not sure of, he looked at Xiao Hong expectantly. Xiao Hong bared its teeth and looked at him for a long time before it nodded. Su Ming's spirits lifted. He walked around the stone platform a few times as he thought quickly in his head. I can find the herbs, but the process of making these pills is extremely complicated. I even need fire. It's like cooking rice. It's pretty interesting. Su Ming thought about it carefully and frowned. He remembered that the pot was unusual. It was different from the ones used to cook rice in the tribe. As he searched through his memories, he found out that the pot used for quenching had a strange name. It was called the Barren Cauldron. The pot in the tribe shouldn't work. I also need fire. As Su Ming mumbled, he lifted his head abruptly. His eyes were bright as he looked at one of the 5 summits in Dark Dragon Mountain. That mountain was completely brown. Occasionally, there would be smoke coming out of it. Chapter 9. The 5 summits of Dark Dragon Mountain were all different. The mountain that produced Dark Dragon saliva was the closest to Dark Mountain tribe. If he went deeper into the mountain, it would be easier for him to run into people from other tribes. That was why Su Ming spent most of his time there. Only when he needed to gather herbs that he did not need much would he proceed forward cautiously and remain vigilant. In Su Ming's eyes, the mountain that emitted thick smoke was known as Black Flame Mountain. It was said that this mountain contained a large amount of earth and fire. A long time ago, it was the core of the land of the fire berserkers. Even though many years had passed since then, he could still feel the heat coming from the mountain. Su Ming was no stranger to Black Flame Mountain. He had gone there many times and even met people from Black Mountain tribe. If he had not been agile enough to escape, he would have died a long time ago. That place was very close to Black Mountain tribe, and Black Mountain tribe and Dark Mountain tribe had a personal grudge between them for generations. Both tribes were about the same size, and even though there were no major wars between them, the small conflicts between the hunting teams were still bloody and cruel. After a moment of hesitation, Su Ming's eyes lit up. After a long while, he averted his gaze from Black Flame Mountain and took a few brisk steps towards the deeper part of the platform. There were a few big stones that had sunk into the ground. When Su Ming moved them away, he saw that there was something underneath the stones. It was a crude bow. Even though it was crude, the string that was as thick as a finger was stretched taut. Su Ming could feel the explosive power contained within it. Only members of the hunting team in Dark Mountain Tribe could have a bow. It was difficult for the other members of the tribe to get one. Su Ming had made this bow himself after exchanging herbs for some other materials. He did not bring it back to the tribe but kept it here instead. Only Lei Chen knew about this secret. As he held the bow, Su Ming's eyes lit up. He took out another 5 arrows from under the big stones. The arrowheads were made from the stones. Su Ming would rub the tips of the arrowheads. They were incredibly sharp. He placed the 5 arrows in the basket on his back. Su Ming took the bow and whistled at the little monkey. He pointed at the herbs he had drawn on the ground. The little monkey understood what he meant. It bared its teeth and ran forward in a red blur. With a cautious look on his face, Su Ming quickly followed behind. With a few flashes, the man and monkey disappeared from the spot. In terms of familiarity with Dark Dragon Mountain, even Su Ming could not compare to Xiao Hong. Under Xiao Hong's guidance, the basket on Su Ming's back was already filled with herbs when the sun was setting. There were 7 or 8 types of herbs, and there were quite a few of each type. They were all similar to the pictures Su Ming saw. He could not really tell which one was which, was why he decided to take all the herbs that were similar. You said there's a similar herb here? The sun was about to set. Su Ming and Xiao Hong were in the forest near Black Flame Mountain. He pointed at the black mud before him and looked at Xiao Hong. Xiao Hong nodded and gestured at Su Ming for a long time before pointing at the setting sun in the sky. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. He crouched down and stared at the swamp, calming his chi and focusing his mind as he waited for the sun to set. Time passed by slowly. After a while, the light in the forest had mostly dimmed. It was as if a person's gaze would be swallowed by darkness if they looked further than 100 feet away. The moment the place turned completely dark, a large amount of bubbles suddenly appeared in the swamp. There was also a layer of red light that looked as if it was swimming rapidly within the swamp. This strange sight made all the hairs on Su Ming's body stand up, but he still did not move. He stared at the red glow that was swimming within the mud. It slowly surfaced from the mud. It was red flower buds. Their roots were hidden within the mud. The red glow, just now, was clearly their roots moving. As he watched the flower buds emerge from the mud, Su Ming saw them bloom with his own eyes. There was also an indescribable fragrance that spread through the air. Su Ming only took a whiff and immediately felt his blood boiling. It was as if his entire body was surrounded by flames, and he was about to spit out fire poison. At that moment, Xiao Hong let out a nervous roar. Su Ming did not hesitate. He took a step forward and grabbed the red flower closest to him. He held a sharp knife, made of stone, in his hand. His movements were extremely familiar. In an instant, he cut off the flower from its roots and placed it in the basket on his back. Once he was done, Su Ming used his body's agility and retreated without hesitation. He used all his strength to leave with Xiao Hong. Right after Su Ming left, the roar of a wild beast came from within the mud. All the red flowers immediately shrank back into flower buds and sank into the mud in an instant, disappearing without a trace. Yet very soon, a layer of bright red blood seeped out of the mud, causing the entire area to be filled with the stench of blood. Su Ming and Xiao Hong quickly ran away. When the sky darkened completely, they sat on a big tree and used the moonlight to look through their harvest for the day. There were a lot of herbs in the basket. Su Ming was excited as he looked at them. The scenes of him quenching the herbs kept appearing in his head, and he became even more excited. It's a pity I don't know the exact effects of the scattering dust, but it should be pretty good. Su Ming licked his lips and looked at the 2 herbs in the basket. There was almost no difference in the color of the 2 herbs. At first glance, they looked almost the same. They were both red. The only difference was that one of them had 6 petals and the other had 5 petals. Su Ming did not recognize these 2 herbs. They were unfamiliar to him. They were the only herbs that he had never seen among the herbs needed to make the scattering dust. Luckily, Xiao Hong had some impression of these 2 herbs and brought Su Ming to them. Just which one is needed to create the medicinal pills? Su Ming frowned and swept his gaze across the 2 herbs. The one with 6 petals was the one he obtained from the swamp. When he remembered how strange it was when it bloomed, Su Ming had a feeling that if he ate it, he would immediately die. He put the herbs back into the basket and lay down on the tree. He took a bite of a wild fruit and looked at the stars in the sky. He breathed in the air of the forest. Occasionally, he would hear the sounds of birds and beasts. It was as if he had become one with the forest. It was a comfortable feeling. Lil Red was combing its fur on the side, occasionally looking around vigilantly. Just like that, the man and the monkey spent the night on the trunk of the forest. The next morning, when the sun had just risen, the forest was still half dark. There was even a faint mist in the air. Su Ming and Xiao Hong left the tree and rushed towards Black Flame Mountain in the distance. Along the way, Su Ming held onto his bow and was on high alert. Xiao Hong seemed to have been affected by him and also became cautious. When the sun rose completely and the fog in the forest dissipated like snow, a gigantic mountain appeared before Su Ming. The mountain was entirely brown, and there was a wave of heat coming from it. At the top of the mountain, there was a ball of black smoke rising into the sky. From afar, it was a magnificent sight. Black Flame Mountain, Su Ming mumbled. He looked around cautiously and rushed up the mountain without hesitation. He was prepared before he came. There were a lot of heat-repelling herbs under his feet. He did not stop as he climbed towards the top of the mountain. He may have been climbing quickly, but Su Ming's caution did not decrease. Instead, it increased. He did not know how much time had passed. When he reached the middle of the mountain, Su Ming was about to continue when Xiao Hong let out a soft cry behind him. Su Ming did not think about the cry. He moved to the side and hid himself in a crack on the mountain. His feet dug into the side of the mountain, and he drew the bow with his right hand. He took out an arrow with his left hand. Everything was done in an instant. Xiao Hong was one step ahead of him and stuck close to Su Ming. Su Ming's breathing slowed down. There was a cold glint in his eyes. If he ran into any of the people from Black Mountain Tribe and they discovered each other, then it would definitely be a fight to the death. Not long after, a faint voice traveled into their ears. There was even the sound of stones falling from the sky. It's so early in the morning, and they're asking us to dig up these stupid stones. I don't even know what they're for. You've been nagging all the way here. If it's the tribe leader's request, then we have to complete it. By the way, did you hear? The elder seems to have reached a breakthrough. I heard from someone in the tribe yesterday that the elder is different from how he usually is. He's a little scary now. Do you think the tribe leader asked us to dig up these stones has anything to do with the elder? The two people's voices gradually became clearer before they slowly disappeared into the distance. Su Ming leaned against the crack without moving. He only let out a sigh of relief when he noticed that the two people were getting further away from him. The elder of Black Mountain Tribe has reached a breakthrough. I remember the elder saying that the elder of Black Mountain Tribe is at the 8th level of the blood solidification realm, but he has mastered a fallen berserker art. That's why he can fight against the elder. Su Ming's eyes flashed. He was going to report this to the elder once he returned. He waited for a while longer. Once he was certain that the two people were far away, Su Ming was about to continue climbing up the mountain when the little monkey beside him grabbed Su Ming's clothes. Su Ming immediately turned his head around and saw the little monkey pointing excitedly at the deeper parts of the crack where they were. There was a small natural hole there, and there was heat coming from it. Su Ming's eyes focused, and he immediately gave up on climbing up. Instead, he went closer to the hole and looked at it carefully. He took off the basket on his back and went in with it. Xiao Hong followed behind him. The hole was not big. If it were not for Su Ming's frail body, a normal berserker would not have been able to go through it. Chapter 10. The small cave was strange. The sizes were all the same. After crawling for about 100 feet, Su Ming saw the end of the cave and slowed down. He cautiously approached the exit. When he saw it, he was stunned for a moment before he took a deep breath. It was a fire cave. Numerous cone-shaped stones hung from the ceiling. The surface of the stones was dry and cracked, as if they were about to fall off at any moment. The ground was originally dark, but there were red stones scattered all over the place, illuminating the place with a brown hue. The heat was much stronger than outside. There was a black skeleton not far away. The skeleton was about 80 to 90 feet long. Su Ming could tell with just one glance that it was the skeleton of a python. There was a horn as thick as an arm on the python's skull. The horn was also black. Su Ming had never seen such a long python before, but he had heard from the elder that there was a type of python in Dark Dragon Mountain a long time ago. It was incredibly ferocious. This type of python had a horn on its head and was known as a horned python. The sharpness of that horn was usually used as a treasure to be offered to the tribe. There was a horned python's horn in Dark Mountain tribe. It was an item passed down through generations of tribe leaders. Could it be a horned python? He looked at the python's skeleton and then at the small cave he was in. He had an answer. In silence, Su Ming took out an herb from the basket behind him and threw it downwards. The herb floated down. When it touched the ground, it let out a sizzling sound. After about 15 minutes, it slowly withered. He tried a few more times and confirmed that the temperature of the ground was not low, but he could endure it for some time as long as he did not touch the red stones. Xiao Hong was getting impatient. If it was not because it knew the place was dangerous, it would have jumped down a long time ago. Su Ming crawled out cautiously and jumped down. When his feet touched the ground, sizzling sounds came from his feet. A wave of heat spread from his feet to his entire body, but it would not burn his feet for a short period of time. Once Xiao Hong entered the fire cave, it was immediately drenched in sweat. After thinking for a long time, it returned to the small cave and refused to enter. Instead, it left to play somewhere. Su Ming did not try to persuade him. He carried the basket on his back and walked forward quickly. He guessed that this place was connected to the inner parts of Black Flame Mountain. Perhaps there was a place suitable for quenching herbs. Su Ming did not walk too far before he found himself in an empty space. He did not know where it led to. There were some potholes on the ground, and the heat was much stronger there. Su Ming could even feel the heat under his feet. He hesitated for a moment. Just as he lifted his foot and was about to step down, a wave of heat suddenly erupted, causing Su Ming to cry out in surprise and retreat. His pupils shrank. He saw a flame the size of an arm bursting out from a pothole on the ground before him, instantly illuminating the entire cave with a fiery light. Su Ming took a deep breath and retreated once again. When he reached the entrance of the pit, he focused his attention on it. He looked at it for an hour before the flames gradually disappeared. Yet not long after, another pit erupted in flames once again. Over and over again, they went on and on. Fire! Su Ming stared at the potholes, and a bright light slowly appeared in his eyes, along with pleasant surprise. There really is fire here, but it only appears intermittently. It's not a stable eruption. After Su Ming recovered from his pleasant surprise, he fell silent for a moment and felt that it was a pity. Oh well, even if I can enter the inner parts of the mountain from the top, I might be able to find a better place. But this place is hidden. If there's any danger, I can leave quickly. Then I'll temporarily make this my first quenching cave in my life. There was excitement on Su Ming's face as he mumbled under his breath and looked around him. I have fire now, but I still lack a barren cauldron. I can make my own barren cauldron. Su Ming's gaze fell on the scattered stones on the ground. These stones have been here for so many years, yet they have not been burnt to ashes. It's clear that they are very resistant to heat. I should be able to quench them. Su Ming scratched his head and changed the herbs under his feet. He jumped down again and chose a stone that seemed more suitable for him. After a moment of hesitation, he touched the stone. It was not too hot, just warm. Once he was sure that he wanted to use the stone as a material, Su Ming took out his own medicinal knife. The knife was very sharp, and he often used it to sharpen it. Su Ming held the knife and used all his strength to cut the stone. It was a boring process, but Su Ming was used to it. He did not show any signs of impatience. However, as he was cutting the stone, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration. He looked at the python's bones not far away, especially the black horn on its skull. After a moment of silence, Su Ming walked towards the python's skull and looked at it for a while. Then, he knocked on the python's bones. With that one knock, there was a cracking sound, and the entire set of bones immediately turned into powder and scattered on the ground. Among the fragments, there was only a black bone horn that did not shatter. This horn is indeed extraordinary. I was wondering how the python managed to get in here. Su Ming picked up the horn and slashed at the wall beside him. Immediately, a crack appeared on the wall. This did not surprise Su Ming. I just don't know why the horned python forced its way in from the outside. Su Ming could not understand. He took the horn and walked to the stone and started cutting. With the horn's help, a stone-quenching furnace that was about 50 to 60% similar to the barren cauldron in Su Ming's memories was formed a few hours later. Su Ming even made a lid so that the heat within the barren cauldron would not escape. Let's give it a try first. Su Ming was excited. He pushed the barren cauldron towards the potholes and calmed himself down as he waited. Another few hours passed. Flames erupted again and again. Finally, flames erupted from a pothole near Su Ming. The moment the flames erupted, Su Ming pushed the stone-quenching furnace, causing it to cover up the pothole where the flames erupted. Su Ming was nervous. Whether or not he could quench the fire would depend on whether the barren cauldron could withstand the high temperature. Very soon, the stone furnace turned red. Waves of heat spread out and cracking sounds echoed in the air. A large amount of cracks appeared on the surface of the furnace. Su Ming's heart skipped a beat. But after waiting for a while, the stone did not crack. Only then did he relax. 2 hours. I only have 2 hours to quench the fire. It shouldn't be enough. Su Ming was deep in thought. He had put in a lot of effort to quench the fire. I can do that. Su Ming took a few steps back. He might have an idea in his head, but he did not act rashly. Instead, he stood at a spot where the ground was not too hot and stared at the potholes. He stared at them for the entire day. During that time, the little monkey came by. It left behind some wild fruits when it was too hot and ran out to play again. As for the stone barren cauldron, it also withstood the test. It did not shatter even after being hit by the flames. The flames erupting from the potholes seemed to follow some rules, but there are also no rules at all. A day later, Su Ming took the horn and went to one of the potholes. He quickly drew a trench on the ground and connected one of the potholes to the bottom of the barren cauldron. He did not stop. He drew 6 trenches and quickly retreated. Not long after, flames erupted from one of the potholes. It was clear that most of the flames were diverted to the bottom of the stone barren cauldron through the trench on the ground. It's done, Su Ming observed for a while and found a gap to draw another 5 trenches. He continued observing for the entire day and was certain that his method had extended the range of the fire in the barren cauldron. Only then did he relax. In truth, he was also hesitant. The lines and connections of the trenches were not drawn randomly. He had to keep the flames at the spot where the barren cauldron was located. The flames could not be too big or too small, or else it would be easy for something to go wrong. After all, based on his observations, there were a few times where flames erupted from a few potholes at the same time. If he made a mistake in connecting the trenches, he would be in danger. Once he solved the 2 most basic problems, Su Ming calmed himself down and started quenching for the first time in his life in Black Flame Mountain based on the scenes in his memories. His food was either taken care of by the little monkey, or Su Ming would hunt some small beasts and drag them over to the fire to roast and eat. There was also the matter of the elder from Black Mountain Tribe. Su Ming also told them about it when he met the hunting team from his tribe when he went out to hunt. Days passed by. Occasionally, frustrated voices would come from the place that belonged to him for the quenching of herbs. During this half a month, Su Ming's eyes were already bloodshot. During this half a month, he had tried countless times, but not once had he succeeded. He was already at the first level of the blood solidification realm and had 4 blood veins. If he could form 2 more blood veins, he would be able to step into the second level of the blood solidification realm. Once he reached the second level, Su Ming would be able to cast his first berserker art from the inheritance he received from the statue of the god of berserkers. This was Su Ming's dream. It was also the source of motivation for him to continuously create medicinal pills. Yet the failure of quenching for a month made Su Ming feel disheartened. Yet the stubbornness in his bones made him unwilling to give up just like that. I don't believe it. Xiao Hong, Help me gather more herbs. Su Ming mumbled as he threw the basket at the little monkey that was baring its teeth at the entrance of the cave and continued creating the pills. The little monkey caught the basket and grinned. It turned around and ran out. One day passed, and another day passed. Failure, failure, failure. Another half a month passed. One afternoon, Su Ming stood before the barren cauldron with his hair in a mess. He held two herbs in his hands. They were both red. One of them had 6 petals, and the other had 5 petals. Which one should I use? Su Ming knew that he did not have much time to think. He gritted his teeth. Chapter 11. If it comes down to it, I'll just give it a try. Su Ming gritted his teeth and threw the 6-petal red herb into the stone-quenching furnace. The herb with 6 petals was the one he found in the mud. When it bloomed, it would make people feel as if their blood was on fire. The moment the herb touched the medicinal concoction at the bottom of the cauldron, Su Ming saw an enchanting red light flash within the cauldron. He did not close the lid. Instead, he took a few steps forward and went around the cauldron. He chose a few trenches with flowing flames on the ground and used his horn to cut them open. He used it to temporarily stop the flames from entering the cauldron and control it. The number of trenches on the ground had increased compared to a month ago. They were also filled with marks that looked like scars. This was the control method Su Ming had created after studying the cauldron for the past month. Su Ming was very nervous at that moment. Almost all of his attention was on the barren cauldron. Based on his observations over the past month, he would be safe for at least an hour at his current location. He did not need to worry about anything else. Time passed by. Very soon, the hour was up. Su Ming immediately retreated. Not long after he left, a large amount of flames erupted from the ground. As this continued, Su Ming was drenched in sweat not too far away. He continued staring at the cauldron. Based on his experience over the past month, he knew that he still had about 14 to 16 hours before he could see the results. During this time, he needed to change the strength of the flames according to the changes in the medicinal concoction. He also needed to close the lid of the cauldron at the last moment, so that the heat within it would increase exponentially and the medicinal pill would be formed. He had carried out this operation countless times over the past month, so he was very familiar with it now. 2 hours, 4 hours passed, and a red mist gradually spread out from the barren cauldron. The mist had no smell, but there was a strange light shining within it. When Su Ming saw it, he felt as if the blood in his body started flowing faster. During that time, he changed the strength of the fire a few times. When the sky outside darkened completely, Su Ming's eyes were bloodshot. He had spent the entire day creating the medicinal pill. Everything was going smoothly until then, and he was about to reach the final step. Through the red mist, Su Ming could see that there was not much medicinal concoction left in the barren cauldron. It was bubbling continuously, and every time a bubble popped, red mist would rise from the cauldron. Almost there! Su Ming's eyes flashed as he gathered his experiences from his countless failures. Without any hesitation, he grabbed the lid of the barren cauldron beside him and quickly covered the cauldron. The instant the barren cauldron was covered, a muffled roar reverberated through the cave. Whether it succeeds or not depends on this. Once he covered the lid, Su Ming took a deep breath and took a few steps back. He sat down cross-legged on the ground and closed his eyes to rest. He knew that he had done everything he could. Whether he succeeded or not was not up to him. It all depended on his luck. After another 2 hours, the roar within the barren cauldron grew louder. After 9 roars, it slowly quieted down. Besides the fire burning under the barren cauldron, there was no other sound. Su Ming did not open his eyes. He continued resting and waiting patiently. When the time came for the flames to erupt and the flames under the barren cauldron dissipated, Su Ming opened his eyes and walked towards the cauldron. His right hand was filled with heat-resistant herbs, and he pushed the lid of the barren cauldron open. The moment the lid was opened, a red wave of heat rushed out. But Su Ming was prepared for it. The moment he opened the cauldron, he quickly retreated. After a while, the red wave of heat gradually disappeared. Su Ming's heart pounded against his chest. With nervousness and anticipation, he slowly walked forward and looked into the barren cauldron. The moment he looked inside, Su Ming suddenly laughed. There were 3 red medicinal pills at the bottom of the barren cauldron. Su Ming carefully took out the 3 medicinal pills and sat down excitedly by the side. He played with the strange items he had only seen in his memories. Su Ming loved the round medicinal pills. He even sniffed them for a long time. Unfortunately, there was no medicinal fragrance within them. Instead, there was a faint smell of blood. The medicinal pill was also incredibly fragile. In fact, Su Ming had a feeling that if he used a little more force, he could crush the medicinal pill into powder. That was indeed the case. However, Su Ming did not pay too much attention to it. "I've finally succeeded after a month." The more Su Ming looked at the pills, the happier he became. He was about to eat one when he hesitated. He quelled the excitement in his heart. His mind was filled with the strange scene when he plucked the 6-petal red herb. "Since I was able to create a medicinal pill with this herb, I wonder if I can make the other one." Su Ming put away the 3 medicinal pills carefully and took out the 5-petal red herb. After a moment of silence, his eyes flashed. He calculated the time and closed his eyes to meditate. He circulated the power of the blood in his veins to recover from his exhaustion. The night passed uneventfully. The little monkey came back in the middle of the night. When it entered the cave, there was an intoxicated look on its face. It sniffed its right paw and ignored Su Ming. Once it jumped in, it lay down at a spot that was not too hot. It had gotten used to this place over the past month. But even as it lay there, it continued sniffing its right paw. The intoxicated look on its face grew stronger. It seemed to have thought of something and started giggling. The next morning, Su Ming opened his eyes from his meditative state and moved his body. The fatigue from the previous day was gone. It was no longer there. Full of energy, Su Ming picked up the 5-petal herb and continued to quench the herbs. A few days later, Su Ming walked out of the fire cave that he had not left for quite some time. When he saw the sunlight outside, his eyes stung. He was used to the fiery red light in the cave, and now that the light was too bright, he was slightly uncomfortable. Su Ming stood there and took in a few breaths of fresh air. Once his eyes returned to normal, he looked at his surroundings cautiously before slowly climbing down the mountain. He moved quickly and kept his guard up. With the little monkey keeping an eye on him, he did not run into any danger and arrived at the foot of the mountain without a hitch. He found a river at the foot of the mountain. The water there was also hot. Su Ming took off his clothes and soaked himself in the water. The fatigue from quenching the herbs for the past few days was gone. Only then did he climb out reluctantly and quickly leave with the little monkey. He had more important things to do. Su Ming and the little monkey dashed through the forest. After a few rounds, Su Ming had already caught a few ferocious-looking little beasts in his hands. He even caught a few of them from the little monkey's place. In a secluded corner, Su Ming cast a glance at the 4 tied-up beasts roaring at him. He ignored them and averted his gaze. With a grave expression, he brought out 2 small clay bottles from his bosom. Inside the 2 bottles were 2 kinds of medicinal pills. One of them was scarlet in color and looked very ghastly. The other one was green. There was a faint medicinal fragrance coming from it. Just taking a whiff of it could make people feel refreshed. The green medicinal pill was the one Su Ming had created after he filled it with herbs with 5 petals a few days ago. Scattering dust? If I'm just going by instinct, then the green pill is the scattering dusts. But what is the red pill? A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. There were 3 pills in each of the 2 bottles. He first took out one of each and lifted his head to look at the small beasts before he got up and walked towards them. Once he fed the 2 different pills to the 2 little beasts, Su Ming took a few steps back and observed them anxiously. Even the little monkey was affected and became nervous. He waited for a long time. There was no change in the 2 little beasts after they swallowed the pills. They were still roaring at Su Ming with a ferocious look on their faces. Su Ming frowned. He waited for a while, but it was still the same. How could this be? Logically speaking, there should be some sort of reaction, but I can tell that it's not poisonous. Could it be that it's not for consumption, but for external use? Su Ming had an idea. He took out the horn and walked towards the other two little beasts that did not take the pills. He made two small cuts on their bodies. Blood seeped out. The little monkey quickly went forward and watched. Once Su Ming cut open the two small beast bodies, he immediately brought out two different medicinal pills and placed them on the two small beast wounds. At that moment, something happened. The moment the red pill touched the wound of the little beast, it did not let out a single cry of pain. Instead, its entire body trembled and turned into a puddle of blood. Before the puddle of blood fell to the ground, it immediately started burning and turned into a red mist that rose into the air. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. It happened so fast that it was unimaginable. Su Ming cried out in surprise and quickly retreated. The little monkey was also shocked. It screeched and crawled away. This is... Su Ming took a deep breath. His eyes were filled with fear. He did not expect that the red pill he made would be so shocking. The red mist rose into the air and slowly disappeared. There was only a pile of purplish-red bones on the ground. It was a terrifying sight. The other little beasts were not affected even though they were close by. However, it was clear that they were also shocked. Su Ming's breathing quickened. After a long time, he lowered his head and looked at the red pill in his hand. There was still one pill left in the bottle, but to him, that pill reeked of blood. It's fine if I swallow it, but if I see blood, I will definitely die. Now that I've made this pill, I will call it scattering blood. Su Ming mumbled. He forced down the fear in his heart and put away the pill carefully. He had a feeling that this pill could become one of his trump cards. Then the green medicinal pill should really be the scattering dusts. What are its effects? Su Ming fell silent for a moment. As he pondered over it, his gaze fell on the wound where the green medicinal pill had already melted, but there was nothing wrong with the creature. Chapter 12. Su Ming thought about it for a long time, but still could not figure out the use of the scattering dusts. The memories he obtained only contained the method to create the pill, but not its effects. When noon arrived and the sun was scorching hot, Su Ming hesitated for a moment before leaving the place. He ran all the way back to the place where he created the pills with the little monkey. The little monkey did not stay there for long. It ran out the moment it returned. Outside, Su Ming faced the mountain breeze and leaned against the wall. He held the green medicinal pill in his hands and started thinking hard. What is it for? It doesn't work when taken orally, and it doesn't work when used externally either. He frowned. It was not easy for him to create the pill, but he could not figure out its effects. It made Su Ming feel as if he had wasted the past month. He stared at the pill and gritted his teeth. Oh well, I'll have to try it myself. I'll swallow this pill and experience it for myself. Su Ming was decisive. Once he made up his mind, he did not hesitate and immediately put the scattering dusts in his mouth. The pill melted in his mouth. A thick medicinal fragrance filled Su Ming's mouth. It turned into a wave of heat that flowed into his body, but quickly dissipated. He did not feel much. Su Ming was stunned. He quickly sat down and tried to gather his blood. However, it was no different than usual. He still felt as if he did not have enough blood. He scratched his head hard, full of annoyance. This time, he really faintly felt that he had wasted more than a month in the past. Impossible. There must be some other effect. Su Ming may be disappointed, but he did not give up. However, no matter how much he thought about it, he could not figure it out. He could only let out a long sigh and laugh bitterly. After a while, the red shadow that was the little monkey dashed towards Su Ming from the foot of the mountain. It jumped a few times before Su Ming and threw a large amount of fruits before leaving. Su Ming sighed. His stomach was empty. He picked up the fruits and continued thinking as he ate them. 1, 2, 3, Su Ming burped unknowingly and spat out the seeds. He touched his stomach and started thinking again. He looked at the remaining fruits and was about to put them away when he was stunned. Full? Huh. Su Ming stared at the wild fruits and immediately counted the seeds he spat out. There were 15 of them. He vaguely felt as if he had grasped onto something, and his heart pounded. I've liked to eat this wild fruit since I was young. Little Red often picked it for me over the years, but I don't like to eat too much at one time. In the past, I would feel half full after eating 10 or 9 of them, but just now, I only ate 15, and I'm already full. Is my appetite too small? Or perhaps it's related to something else? Su Ming licked his lips. He remembered that he had swallowed a scattering dust previously. Could it be that this scattering dust is a medicinal pill that can replace food? Su Ming was deep in thought. Or in other words, this scattering dust powder can increase the effects of other things. Su Ming's heart pounded against his chest. He took a deep breath. He had already racked his brains for the effects of the powder, but he had no clue. Now that he had grasped onto something, he did not care if it was ridiculous or not. He immediately crawled back into the small cave and quickly returned to the place where he quenched the herbs. He remembered that he still had some dark dragon saliva left. It was a rare item, and he could not obtain it unless it rained. That was why he was reluctant to drink the remaining drops. He quickly returned to the cave where he quenched the herbs. Su Ming took out the small bottle containing the dark dragon's saliva from the basket. Once he opened it, he drank it without hesitation. Su Ming was very familiar with dark dragon saliva. Once the drops entered his stomach, he immediately felt a cooling sensation spread through his body and slowly seeped into his blood. Yet at that moment, the cooling sensation from the dark dragon saliva strangely increased. It seemed to have increased by 10%. It did not seem like much, but Su Ming could feel it clearly. Once the cooling sensation fused with his blood, it turned into a boiling sensation. When he activated his blood, 4 blood veins appeared on his body, emitting a blood-red glow. After a long while, Su Ming opened his eyes and let out a long breath. His eyes were filled with excitement. I knew it! The scattering dust powder has no effect on its own, but if it's taken with other items, then it can increase the effects it already has. It may seem simple, but it's actually something else. Su Ming was excited. The quenching art had given him a lot of motivation. There are 15 small holes on the door where I obtained the quenching method. It's obvious that I need to put 15 of these pills in, but I don't even have enough pills for myself. Su Ming fell silent. After a moment of hesitation, he decided to take it slow. He made up his mind and rushed to the barren cauldron. He once again used the remaining herbs to quench the herbs. In addition to quenching, he also sent the little monkey out to look for herbs. He collected a large amount of the plants that the elder would take away every time he remembered. He used the method of the tribe to grind them into juice and drank it. With the help of the dust cleansing powder, the speed of the monkey's cultivation immediately increased a little. In the blink of an eye, another 2 months went by. During these 2 months, Su Ming practically did not go out. The Fire Car's cave was like his second home. It was not easy to discover the existence of this place, which allowed Su Ming to train without worry. During these 2 months, he created a lot of scattering dusts and drank them together with the medicinal concoctions that increased his blood. Gradually, the 5th blood vein manifested on his body. Even the 6th blood vein was starting to appear. If he continued like this, he would be able to manifest it in no time. It was winter outside. The other mountains were covered in snow. Only the area around Black Flame Mountain was covered in snow. The snow had already melted before it even touched the ground. But because of that, the mountain was covered in mist. From afar, it looked strange. If it was the first time an outsider came here, they would definitely be interested. But for Su Ming, he had grown up nearby. He was used to the strangeness of the mountain and did not find it strange. On this day, Su Ming sat with his legs crossed. The blood-red glow on his body was thick. The 5 blood veins surrounded his body as if they had a life of their own. It was a shocking sight to behold. The blood-red glow continued to spread out. Su Ming's body was covered in sweat. His body trembled slightly, but his face was filled with determination. This was the 3rd time he tried to manifest the 6th blood vein in half a month. Once he succeeded, he would become a berserker at the 2nd level of the blood solidification realm. More importantly, he would be able to cast the first berserker art in his life. It was an art that belonged to his tribe, Spirit Devourer. The Spirit Devourer berserker art could not be cast out of thin air. It required the corpse of a wild beast that had just died. Through the berserker blood veins, the berserker could sense the spirit of the dead beast. Once the spirit was extracted, the berserker would be able to increase part of the berserker's abilities for a short period of time. Only after mastering the berserker art could a berserker be called a berserker. There would be a clear difference between them and the other members of the tribe. They would become much stronger. After a long while, Su Ming's body trembled. The blood-red glow surrounding him gradually dissipated. The 5 blood veins on his skin also gradually faded away. He had failed to manifest the 6th blood vein once again. Su Ming let out a deep breath. After a moment of silence, he took out some medicinal concoction and swallowed it along with the scattering dust. He started training once again. Days passed by. In the blink of an eye, another month had passed. The entire Dark Dragon Mountain was covered in a thick layer of snow. Even Black Flame Mountain was shrouded in fog. Even the hot air was showing signs of dispersing. The coldest time of the year had arrived. But for Su Ming, this was the most crucial moment for him. Due to his relentless hard work and the fact that he had enough herbs and scattering dusts, Su Ming's training speed in the blood solidification realm was incredibly fast. The 6th blood vein had already taken form, and it was about to manifest itself at the crucial moment. The little monkey did not want to go out during winter. Its fur was red, and it stood out too much on the white snow. That was why it would stay quiet until winter arrived. At that moment, it was crouching beside Su Ming. It yawned as it looked at Su Ming. Yet at that moment, it suddenly turned its head around. There was a fierce look in its eyes, and its ears twitched a few times. There was a faint sound coming from outside. Yu Qi, the sky stone soul you mentioned grows here? We've been looking for it for a long time, but we still couldn't find it. Are you sure? It was a cold voice that made the little monkey tremble when it heard it. I don't think so. I remember that it was just a sprout when I first saw it. That's why I cast a berserker art nearby to hide it. It should have matured by now. You should know that only the normal members of the tribe come here to gather herbs. It's impossible for them to see through my berserker art. The person who answered had a sharp voice. Then hurry up and look for it. If there really is sky stone, I might be able to break through the 3rd level quickly and enter the 4th level. As for you, you should be able to enter the 3rd level as well. Don't worry. It should be here. I can still feel the connection of my berserker art. If you can reach the 4th level, then you can join the Black Mountain Hunters. I heard that the elder personally decided on the prey this time. Whatever you get will belong to you. The two people's voices were getting closer. It sounded as if they were outside. The little monkey was so nervous that it did not dare to breathe. It could feel that the two people outside could pose a great threat to it. It turned its head around to look at Su Ming, but Su Ming's eyes were shut tight. His body was trembling slightly. The blood-red light on his body was getting brighter. The 6th blood vein looked like it was going to solidify at any moment. Yet at that moment, I found it. Huh? Look, there's a hole here. It's a pity it's a little small. That's right. It's sky stone. As for this hole, this was once the land of the Fire Berserker tribe. There's heat around the hole, so it should be empty. Since we're already here, let's go in and take a look. It's just a hole. It won't be a problem for me. The two people's voices traveled into the small monkey's ears. Their words made the little monkey's expression change. It gritted its teeth anxiously and turned its head around to look at Su Ming. Then it bared its teeth and turned into a red blur that rushed into the small hole. It disappeared into the hole. Cries of surprise and excitement immediately came from outside. It's a fire ape, and it's a baby too. Ha! This is where it avoids the cold. Catch it. Its blood is a great tonic for us. We can give its fur to the elder. As a shrill cry of pain echoed in the air, the voices outside gradually faded away. Yet within the cave, Su Ming's face was contorted and he was trembling violently. You're asking for it. Su Ming lifted his head and let out an angry roar. Chapter 13. The moment Su Ming lifted his head, his eyes were bloodshot. His entire body glowed with a blood-red light, illuminating the entire fire karst cave. His body trembled continuously. As his blood circulated through his veins, his heart pounded faster and faster, as if it was about to explode. Su Ming's expression became even more twisted. He was at a critical moment and could not stop the process. But Su Ming could still hear the little monkey's shrill cries and everything that had happened just now. He watched helplessly as little monkey rushed out alone to lure the two outsiders away in order to protect himself. Su Ming had never felt such madness in his life. The little monkey was his only friend in the forest. Over the years, he had already treated the little monkey as his family. The madness he felt right now made Su Ming's veins pop out. There were muffled roars echoing within his body. The 5 blood veins that had appeared on his body were emitting a blinding light. Within this red light, the 6th blood vein that was about to completely condense seemed to be struggling to break out of its cocoon. Damn it, the 2nd level of the blood solidification realm. Su Ming lifted his head and roared with bloodshot eyes. His previous attempts were gentle. Even if he did not succeed, his body would not be affected. But now, the little monkey's fate was unknown. Every second that passed by made Su Ming anxious. He threw caution to the wind and madly circulated the blood in his veins. Without caring about anything else, he directed all the blood in his body towards the 6th blood immortal's vein, according to the method of berserker training. There was a loud bang. Blood trickled down the corner of Su Ming's mouth. His body trembled and his face was pale. His crazy actions were a taboo for those who practiced the berserker way. Those who practiced the berserker way, especially those who were in the blood solidification realm, needed to move forward steadily. They could not be rash. The sound of the explosion was not loud to the outside world, but to Su Ming, it was as if the sky and earth were shattering. The sound echoed in his head. Damn it! Su Ming glared at the exit. He could almost see the little monkey's fear, helplessness, and determination. Without hesitation, Su Ming circulated all the blood in his body once again and launched the 2nd attack. More blood trickled down the corner of his mouth and dripped down his chin to the ground. 3rd time, 4th time, 5th time, when he circulated all his blood in his body for the 5th time. As if it was flowing in reverse, Su Ming coughed out a huge mouthful of blood. His face instantly turned stark pale, but a monstrous killing intent appeared on his face. With the blood at the corners of his mouth, Su Ming looked incredibly ghastly at that moment. His body suddenly stood up. The moment he stood up, a loud bang came from within his body. The 6th blood vein had completely condensed. As the 6th blood vein was formed, a presence that was completely different from the 1st level of the blood solidification realm erupted from Su Ming's body, causing his hair to move without wind. The 6 blood veins swam rapidly on his skin, as if they were alive. Blood condensation, 2nd level. Before the 2nd layer was completely stabilized, Su Ming grabbed the bow and horn by his side with a speed that was twice as fast as before and ran towards the exit. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared from the place. He quickly crawled out of the small hole. When he appeared outside, snow was falling from the sky and the sun was about to set. It was dusk. One of them is at the 2nd level of the blood solidification realm, and the other is at the 3rd level of the blood solidification realm. Su Ming's eyes were bloodshot. A cold glint flashed briefly in his eyes. No matter how strong his enemies were, there was no fear in Su Ming's eyes. There was only killing intent. At that moment, he had already forgotten his fear. The moment the little monkey was captured, the 2 berserkers from Black Mountain Tribe became Su Ming's mortal enemies. If they did not die, then Su Ming would die, even if it was like a moth flying into a flame. But outsiders did not know the cause and effect of the story of a moth flying into a flame. It was a stubbornness. It was a struggle for life. If the flame did not extinguish, then the moth would burn. Su Ming did not hesitate. He charged forward at full speed. As a member of the Berserker tribe, he had been playing and gathering herbs in the mountains since he was young. He was very familiar with the place and was also good at searching for answers through clues. As he sped along, he looked at the ground while wiping the blood from the corners of his mouth and hands. After a moment, his eyes flashed, and he saw some messy marks on the withered vegetation in front of him. He picked up a broken branch and looked at it carefully. The killing intent in his eyes grew stronger, and he threw it down and changed direction, leaving in a flash. On the way, Su Ming ran at full speed without caring about anything else. He pushed his body to the limit and found a lot of clues. He even found a pool of blood. There were a few strands of red hair in the pool of blood. They belonged to the little monkey. However, the blood was showing signs of drying up. It was clear that the people had captured the little monkey and had left for some time. I can't catch up. Su Ming's face was dark. He clenched his fists and madness appeared in his eyes once again. They're from Black Mountain Tribe. They must return to Black Mountain Tribe. If that's the case, then there's a shortcut from here to Black Mountain Tribe. Su Ming turned around and took a step forward. His body agilely disappeared into the snow-covered forest. I have to go faster. Su Ming ran as if he was flying through the forest, but he still felt that he was too slow. As he moved forward, he left behind a series of footprints on the snow. At that moment, just as Su Ming was about to land again, the snow before him loosened. Suddenly, the snow before him loosened, and a small creature that looked like a fox but was covered in snow-white fur and had antlers on its head jumped out of the snow. It was so quick that in the blink of an eye, it closed in on Su Ming ferociously. Mink raccoon! Su Ming did not slow down. The moment the small beast jumped out of its hiding place, he lifted his right hand and threw a punch forward. If it was the previous Su Ming, the force behind his punch would not have been enough. However, he was now a berserker at the second level of the blood solidification realm. He already had 6 blood veins. His chi also increased tremendously. Not only did his speed increase, his strength also increased by several times. His punch landed on the mink raccoon's body. The beast screamed, and its pupils shrank. It twisted its body in midair, wanting to avoid the punch. However, Su Ming's body moved forward. The horn had already appeared in his left hand at some point in time. As his fist brushed past the small beast, the horn tore the beast's body apart. Blood spilled onto the ground. The small beast screamed in pain as it struggled on the snow, dyeing a large patch of the ground red. It was a clean kill. Su Ming paused and lowered his head to look at the dead mink raccoon. His eyes sparkled as he crouched down and lifted his right hand. He took a deep breath and circulated the blood in his body. Immediately, his entire body glowed with a blood-red light, as if it had fused with the blood on the ground. Under the blood-red light, 6 blood veins appeared on Su Ming's body. He placed his right hand slowly on the body of the small creature that had just died. There was a strange light in his eyes. One of the blood veins on his body started twisting in a strange manner and slowly spread out from Su Ming's right arm to his palm. It also seemed to have fused into the small creature's body. The dead small beast started trembling strangely. All its fur fell off, and its body withered rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a skeleton. At the same time, wisps of white mist floated up from its body and gathered together, turning into the creature's appearance when it was alive. However, it was a little indistinct, as if it could be blown away by the wind. This was the first time Su Ming cast the spirit-devouring berserker art. There was a detailed description of this art in the cultivation method he had obtained. Usually, a person would need some time to train their spirit before they could devour it. However, Su Ming did not have that time. He opened his mouth and sucked in a breath towards the small beast that was formed by the white mist. Immediately, the small beast turned into wisps of white mist and was sucked into Su Ming's mouth. Su Ming's body trembled. He could clearly feel that he had obtained some extra power. However, the extra power was quickly dissipating. It would not take long before he returned to normal. With a leap, Su Ming seized the time and ran forward. This time his speed was faster than before. In a flash, he became faster and faster like the wind. The moaning sound of the wind whistled past his ears. There was only one thought in Su Ming's mind: to catch up to the person and save the little monkey. As for the method, he was not a reckless person. He had already prepared for it. An hour later, the extra power in Su Ming's body had long since dissipated. However, it allowed him to arrive at Black Flame Mountain near the Black Mountain Tribe. It was a small hill. It looked like a slope, When he stood there, he could see further into the distance. His vision was rather wide. As he approached the place, Su Ming's eyes became sharp. His eyes shone brightly as he stared in the direction of Black Flame Mountain. Very soon, he saw two people moving extremely quickly at the end of his vision. One of them was holding the unmoving little monkey in his hand. Su Ming stood there and took out a small bottle from his bosom with his right hand. There was a red pill in the bottle. After making sure that there was no blood in his hands, Su Ming took out the pill and held it in his palm. This medicinal pill was his trump card. He calmed his breathing and held the bow, an arrow in his hands. His eyes were filled with a deathly stillness. The two people in the distance were getting closer. They were less than a few miles away from him, and they could see each other. The two of them were both tall and sturdy, and they looked quite strong. The man carrying the little monkey was only wearing a thin piece of animal skin in this winter. His upper body was bare, and he emitted waves of white mist. It was as if he could melt the winter with the power of his blood and qi. However, Su Ming only took a glance at him before focusing his attention on the other person. This person was also tall and strong. He carried a few spears on his back, but he was slightly shorter. However, Su Ming could feel that the person's qi was much stronger than his companions. It was something that Su Ming could not compare to. This was a powerful berserker. Su Ming's pupil shrank, but he still lifted the bow in his hand and pointed at the man. When Su Ming looked at the man also saw Su Ming. A cold glint appeared in his eyes, and he looked slightly ferocious. Chapter 14. He's a berserker from another tribe, and he's alone. Judging by his qi, he's only at the second level of the blood solidification realm. It'll be easy to kill him. Besides, this place is close to the tribe, and there are two of us. We won't be afraid of any traps. But since he dared to challenge us, he must have some tricks up his sleeve. But with my power at the third level of the blood solidification realm, I'll be fine. The shorter man at the third level of the blood solidification realm from Black Mountain Tribe smiled ferociously. He did not care about Su Ming at all. To him, there was too much of a difference between the two of them. Besides, Su Ming's body was thin and weak. He did not seem to have much offensive power. More importantly, other than Windstream Tribe, the other tribes nearby would not hesitate to kill any berserker who was alone. There was no logic to it. It was the law of the jungle. Just like before, if Xiao Hong had not led the danger away, and the two of them had entered the cave, they would have also cruelly killed Su Ming and exchanged his head for rewards. Yu Qi, I'll go and kill him. Wait here. As the man spoke, he charged forward like a ferocious tiger. The distance between him and Su Ming became smaller and smaller. The man from Black Mountain Tribe, Yu Qi, who was holding on to the little monkey, did not dare to have any thoughts about this arrangement. Even if he knew that if he killed a berserker from another tribe and brought his head to the tribe, he would still not dare to snatch the credit from Su Ming. Oh well, this person and I are both at the second level. If we fight, we'll waste a lot of time. If he goes, I'll be able to kill him quickly. With this credit, I might even be able to get some benefits. Yu Qi thought about it and looked over. In his mind, this was a battle that would not go wrong. There was a hint of cruelty in his eyes. He could already imagine what would happen next. It would be bloody but pleasing to the eyes. The man at the third level of the blood solidification realm, who was getting closer to Su Ming, also had the same thought. He took huge steps forward and quickly closed in on Su Ming. Soon, he was less than 1,000 feet away from Su Ming. 800 feet, 700 feet, 600 feet. As he got closer, the man could see Su Ming's face clearly. As he laughed ferociously, he let out a low growl. With it, the snow around him started trembling, and the snowflakes were thrown into the air before exploding with a bang in the air, turning into a layer of snow fog that blocked everyone's vision. At that instant, the man immediately drew a long spear from his back with his right hand and threw it at Su Ming, who was 600 feet away, with all his might. A piercing whistle rang in the air, and Su Ming immediately felt a fierce presence closing in on him. Without any hesitation, he immediately took a step to the side. A whooshing sound rang in his ears, and the long spear brushed past the tip of his hair. Once the man threw the long spear, he did not look at the result. Instead, wisps of black mist immediately surrounded his feet, causing his speed to increase exponentially as he took a step forward. Very soon, the distance of 600 feet between him and Su Ming was reduced to only 300 feet. Die! The burly man raised his right hand and took out a second spear. Just as he was about to throw it out, the snow fog that covered the sky suddenly scattered and his vision recovered slightly. An arrow pierced through the snow fog and shot towards the burly man like a bolt of lightning. The man laughed maniacally. With the spear in his right hand, he casually threw it at the incoming arrow. With a bang, the arrow shattered into pieces. Yet at that moment, there were a few whooshing sounds in the air, and 3 more arrows came whistling through the air. The arrows were too fast, and the spots they chose were extremely tricky. It made the man frown, but he let out a cold harumph and released a large amount of black mist from his feet. In the blink of an eye, it surrounded his entire body and turned into a layer of mist. The 3 arrows closed in on him in an instant, and the moment they touched the black mist, they melted in a black liquid at a speed visible to the naked eye. Even so, the black gas had dissipated quite a bit, revealing the burly man's body. How dare you attack me when you're only at the 2nd level of the blood solidification realm? The man leaped forward, and there was only 200 feet between him and Su Ming. Su Ming's face was pale, but his legs did not move. There was no panic in his eyes, just the same deathly stillness. He took out another arrow and shot it towards the man. 1 arrow, another arrow, and another arrow. At an incredible speed, he shot 5 arrows in a row. The 5 arrows formed a straight line, and as they whistled through the air, they seemed to contain a great amount of power. In an instant, they charged towards the man. When the man saw this, he frowned. There were not many people in his tribe who could do this with bows and arrows. 5 consecutive arrows. The man lifted the long spear in his right hand. The moment the first arrow came in contact with it, the spear shattered with a bang and exploded at the same time as the first arrow. The second arrow shot forward. The man let out a low growl, and the black mist surrounded his body, causing the second arrow to melt the moment it touched him. The third arrow closed in like lightning, but the man dodged it with a single move. The fourth arrow came in contact with him. The man let out a low growl, and with a ferocious look on his face, he clenched his right hand into a fist and punched the arrow, causing it to shatter and leaving a wound on his right hand. At that moment, the 5th arrow came in like a bolt of lightning. The man wanted to avoid it, but the arrow still managed to leave a small wound on his shoulder, and blood flowed out. "I'll tear your head off." The man was not injured at all. It was just a small wound. It was nothing to a berserker. The man did not even look at it. He laughed savagely and moved forward. In the blink of an eye, he was 100 feet away from Su Ming. He was already confident of his victory. This battle was not dangerous for him. At most, he would be held back by the arrows for a while. In the distance, Yu Qi was licking his lips. He enjoyed watching such a bloody scene. It made him feel excited from the inside out. Just as the man closed in on him, Su Ming's face turned pale, but his eyes were still dead. He did something that stunned the man and Yu Qi, who was standing in the distance. He gave up on drawing his bow. Instead, he clenched his right fist and closed in on the man quickly. No one noticed that at that moment, the red medicinal pill in Su Ming's right hand had already been crushed in a powder by him. "You're asking for death." The man continued closing in on Su Ming. In the blink of an eye, there were only dozens of feet between them. 30 feet, 20 feet, 10 feet. The man clenched his right fist. As the chi in his body boiled, a great amount of power erupted from his fist and gathered in it. He threw his fist towards Su Ming's head. If he was hit, then Su Ming would not be able to withstand it. He would definitely die. At that moment, Su Ming lifted his head. The deathly stillness in his eyes disappeared and was replaced by a monstrous killing intent. The killing intent was so strong that it shocked the man. However, it was already too late for him to be shocked. The moment Su Ming lifted his head, He swung his clenched right hand at the man before him. With it, a layer of red powder filled the air. Some of it landed on the wound on the man's right fist, and some on the fine wound on his shoulder. The man shuddered, but he did not let out a shrill scream of pain. Neither did he struggle. His body looked as if it was boiling before Su Ming, and as if the world had wiped him off, he turned into a layer of red fog that rose into the air and disappeared. The only thing left on the ground was a skeleton without any flesh and blood. When wind blew, it was reduced to powder. There was a strange black and white blade of grass among the bone powder. It was glowing faintly. This sudden turn of events caused Yu Qi, who was standing not too far away, to be completely stunned. He could not accept what was happening. He could not even believe what he was seeing. His expression was lifeless as he stared at the thin and frail young man's cold face and icy gaze as he watched the young man charging towards him at high speed. This fire ape's carcass will be a great supplement once it's refined. I want it. Su Ming's eyes flashed, and he suddenly spoke. Yu Qi shuddered. When he snapped out of his daze, he was drenched in cold sweat. Su Ming's words made him forget about the idea of using the little monkey as a hostage. Instead, he thought that Su Ming was here to steal the item. The moment that thought appeared in his head, he immediately retreated madly. He still could not understand how his companion had died. The sight of his companion's wretched death was especially terrifying to him. Fallen berserker. You're a fallen berserker. Yu Qi's face was pale as he screamed. His face was filled with fear. He could not accept this reality. He was so scared that he did not dare face Su Ming. He ran with all his might. Su Ming was on the path leading to Black Mountain Tribe. Yu Qi could not return to his tribe. He could only run towards Black Flame Mountain. Su Ming was about to give chase when he felt dizzy. He was extremely tired. He shook his head and forced himself to be alert. He looked at the skeleton on the ground. This was the first time he killed someone. But now was not the time to hesitate. He did not immediately chase after Yu Qi instead. He quickly cleaned up the place and picked up the arrows he could use. He also took the strange blade of grass from the skeleton. Su Ming looked in the direction that Yu Qi ran off to. His eyes flashed with killing intent once again. Xiao Hong is still in his hands. Since I've already killed one, I might as well kill another. That way, I won't be able to find the place for quenching herbs. Su Ming gritted his teeth and endured his fatigue as he chased after Yu Qi. The two of them ran through the forest one after the other. Yu Qi did not dare turn back to face Su Ming. He only ran as fast as he could, trying to widen the distance between them. However, even if Yu Qi was not unfamiliar with Dark Dragon Mountain, he could not compare to Su Ming in terms of familiarity. Besides, he could not surpass Su Ming in terms of speed. Even if he managed to escape ahead of Su Ming was still gradually catching up to him based on the clues he left behind. Su Ming endured his fatigue as he glared at the man from Black Mountain Tribe who was leaping towards him. He knew that the man was frightened by his actions just now. That was why he did not dare to fight against him. This was part of Su Ming's plan. With scattering blood, as long as he could kill one person cleanly, the other person would definitely be terrified. After all, most people would be terrified when they saw that strange scene for the first time. Su Ming did not chase after him too closely either. Instead, as he chased after him, he would occasionally be blocked by some obstacles without a trace, causing the man to often find that the distance between him and Su Ming had widened once again, just as he was about to catch up to him. He would grit his teeth and risk everything to turn around to fight, but at that instant he would find that the distance between him and Su Ming had widened once again, and he could not help but hesitate. Chapter 15. Su Ming had been following the Elder since he was young. He had read almost every single one of the beast skin scrolls that the Elder had given him countless times. There was a lot of wisdom in those scrolls that he was obsessed with. The wisdom of those who came before him slowly seeped into Su Ming's mind as time passed by. However, it was as if it was in deep sleep and did not wake up. Yet now, as Su Ming chased after the person he killed, the wisdom that had been seeped into him was slowly awakening. Yu Qi was anxious. He originally thought that he would not be able to escape. He had been prepared to turn around and fight to the death with Su Ming. Yet when he saw the distance between him and Su Ming increasing, his desire to fight was extinguished. When his eyes turned bloodshot again, it was the same. After a few times, he no longer had the urge to throw caution to the wind. It was difficult for him to be like before. In Su Ming's eyes, the berserker from Black Mountain Tribe was just his prey. He was a frightened prey. As long as he could make his opponent think that he still had hope, then he could slowly kill him. Su Ming used this method to continuously wear down Yu Qi's confidence and courage as he chased after him. As the chase continued, he would sometimes widen the distance between them on purpose so that Yu Qi would feel a sense of relief amidst his intense nervousness. Su Ming remembered that there was a rough description in one of the beast skin scrolls. Once one relaxed after being under constant tension, the exhaustion and pain would be magnified. That feeling was enough to drown all living beings. Su Ming only knew about these things in the past. But as he chased after Yu Qi, he slowly began to understand these things, and they became instinctive. He did not even need to do it on purpose. The effect he wanted to achieve was naturally achieved. To him, this was the first time he killed someone and the first time he chased after someone. It was also the first time in his life that he experienced an invisible change. It was a pity that only Yu Qi could experience this change personally. Yu Qi felt it deeply. However, he did not know the cause of all this. All he knew was that his confidence and courage had diminished slightly after witnessing the strange murder scene. However, in the process of being hunted down, his confidence and courage gradually disappeared. In fact, without even realizing it, he no longer had any thoughts of turning around to fight. Even though his opponent was also at the second level of the blood condensation realm, he felt that if he turned around, he would die without a doubt. If he continued to flee, he would have quite a bit of a chance at survival. What he didn't realize was that his exhaustion was increasing, especially when he noticed that the youth behind him had disappeared. The exhaustion almost made his legs go weak, and he felt like he was about to fall. However, he couldn't rest, and he gritted his teeth and persevered. However, this perseverance only lasted for a short while. When the figure of the other appeared at the end of Yu Qi's line of sight, it immediately turned into an even greater exhaustion. It made Yu Qi feel like he was about to go crazy. Evil barbarian. He must be an evil barbarian. Yu Qi's heart trembled in fear. As he ran, a fork appeared in front of him. The left path led to the deeper parts of the forest, the path that led away from Black Flame Mountain. The right path led around Black Flame Mountain, the path that led to the Black Mountain Tribe. Su Ming, who was chasing after Yu Qi, already knew that there was such a fork in the road. His eyes flashed as he suppressed his exhaustion and increased his speed. He did not chase after Yu Qi, but instead moved through the forest towards the right path. By the looks of it, Su Ming was certain that Yu Qi would take the right path. That was why he took the right path in advance to close the distance between them. As he leapt, Su Ming took out his bow and shot a few arrows at the fork on the right. Within the span of a breath, all the arrows hit the trees on the right path, piercing deep into the trees. The tails of the arrows even buzzed and trembled. The buzzing sound seemed to contain some sort of strange power. When it traveled into Yu Qi's ears, he hesitated for a moment. As Su Ming continued his pursuit, the bow was fully drawn. Yu Qi let out a roar and was about to run to the right when Su Ming's speed increased by quite a bit, giving Yu Qi the wrong impression. He had a feeling that if he continued running to the right, he would be caught up immediately. If he ran to the left, then due to Yu Qi's wrong judgment, he would be able to widen the distance between them. The buzzing sound still lingered in his ears. Yu Qi gritted his teeth and changed his direction. He ran to the left quickly and disappeared into the forest in the blink of an eye. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. Despite his exhaustion, a cold smile appeared on his face. He stood up and quickly took out the arrows from the tree branches. He continued his pursuit in the direction that the man from Black Mountain Tribe had escaped to. If you can control the direction of your enemy's escape, then you can control his body, Su Ming mumbled. He remembered that this sentence was also written in one of the beast skin scrolls. He did not understand it before, but now he understood. Time passed by slowly as he chased after Yu Qi soon. It was night. The moon hung high in the sky. The snow that fell on the ground shone with a white light, causing the forest to be illuminated by the silver light even if it was dark. As he chased after Yuchi, Su Ming had already changed Yuchi's direction 3 times. He was slowly controlling Yuchi's body so that Yuchi could go where he wanted him to go. Su Ming touched his bosom, and a hint of gentleness appeared in his bloodshot and tired eyes. The unconscious little monkey lay in his bosom. He had thrown the little monkey in another direction when he was controlling Yuchi to change his direction. He wanted to use it to widen the distance between him, and Yuchi's action was effective. Su Ming ran towards the little monkey, causing Yuchi to let out a sigh of relief in his heart. However, Su Ming's speed was indeed faster. However, not long after, Yuchi realized that arrows were once again whizzing towards him from behind. This almost drove Yuchi mad. Night fell. The stars hung high in the sky, twinkling. It was as if there were countless eyes watching the chase in the forest. Yuchi was exhausted. He staggered. The feeling of his body was secondary. The most important thing was his heart. It was as if it was riddled with holes. It filled him with endless regret. He regretted discovering the small hole and regretted chasing after the fire ape. If he had done so, things would not have turned out this way. Before him was a forest filled with weeds and shrubs. Even though it was winter, he could not see into the depths of the forest. When Yuchi stepped into the forest without hesitation, Su Ming appeared outside the forest not long after. He stood there, panting heavily. A large amount of white air came out of his mouth, but his eyes were cold. He did not continue his chase. Instead, he waited quietly at the same spot. This is the place of your death that I've pointed out to you. If you can still walk out of this place with how tired you are, then you'll be lucky. Su Ming's breathing calmed down as he mumbled to himself. Just as he finished speaking, a shrill cry of pain came from the forest in the silent night. The sound of the cry echoed in the air, causing all those who heard it to feel fear in their hearts. After a while, the sound of the cry gradually weakened until it turned into a faint wail of pain. Su Ming walked forward in silence and slowly entered the forest. He was very careful as he moved. Every few steps he took, he would check his surroundings carefully, either retreating, going around, or leaping over the trees. This was the area where the hunting team from Dark Mountain Tribe had set up traps to capture wild beasts. There were a lot of traps in the forest. Besides Dark Mountain Tribe, no other tribe would know about them. Even Su Ming only knew about some of the traps. There were some that he did not know about. If Yuchi was at his peak, he might have been able to walk out of the forest alive. However, with his current condition, entering this place was equivalent to entering hell. Su Ming walked forward cautiously. The cries from the distance became weaker. Gradually, as Su Ming moved forward, he saw Yuchi, who was nailed to the tree like a rake by a row of sharpened tree trunks that were as thick as a person. His entire body was drenched in blood, but he was not dead yet. He was trembling and moaning weakly. Su Ming walked forward quietly and stood by Yuchi's side. He looked at the man, and after a long while, he took out the horn and sliced his neck. Yuchi's body struggled violently for a few moments before he breathed his last. Before he died, he glared at Su Ming, his eyes filled with endless hatred. Su Ming remained silent as he cut off the rope that was the trap. Once he dug out some miscellaneous items from Yuchi's corpse, he took out some of the remaining scattering blood powder and turned the corpse into a pile of bones that turned into ashes the moment he touched it. Su Ming turned around quietly and walked out of the forest. As he stood outside, he looked at the moon in the sky. There was a dazed look in his eyes. This was the second time he killed someone. He could not describe how he felt. Nervousness, apprehension, confusion. After a long while, he let out a sigh. Black Mountain Tribe and Dark Mountain Tribe may be the same tribe, but over the years, they had become enemies. Once one of the tribes became stronger, the other would face the danger of extinction. All the men in the tribe would be killed, and only the women would be taken away to be used by the other tribe to reproduce. Fortunately, this had never happened before. For many years, the elders of both tribes were at the same level. They would not easily start a war. Su Ming took a deep breath. Exhaustion filled his body. He dragged his nearly unconscious body and left with gritted teeth. Time passed by slowly. When dawn arrived and the sun rose from the horizon, Su Ming returned to the quenching grounds of Black Flame Mountain. His face was sallow as he crawled into the cave. When he appeared in the fire-karst cave, he fell to the side and fainted. Chapter 16. Brother, big brother, can you hear me? The familiar yet downcast and delicate voice from the dream echoed in Su Ming's head once again, refusing to disappear even after a long time had passed. His unconscious body trembled lightly, as if he was struggling against something. Brother, I'm waiting for you. Just as the call reached its strongest point, Su Ming snapped out of his stupor. His eyes were lifeless as he stared at the wall before him blankly for a moment. His mind was interrupted by excited screeches. He turned his head around and saw Xiao Hong pouncing on him excitedly, scratching his body. Xiao Hong had woken up a long time ago. It was only unconscious and did not suffer any physical injuries. Once it woke up, it was very worried about Su Ming and waited anxiously by his side. Now that Su Ming had woken up, it was excited. Su Ming looked at the little monkey and smiled. However, there was a hint of confusion hidden within his smile. The dream had appeared for the second time. Su Ming took a deep breath and shook his head, forcing himself not to think about that strange dream anymore. Instead, he lowered his head and looked at the seemingly normal black stone hanging on his neck. As he touched the stone, Su Ming's eyes gradually lit up. He had already personally experienced the changes brought to him by the black stone fragment. The creation of the scattering dust had increased his training speed by a large margin, and due to the red medicinal pill being created by accident, Su Ming had also gained complete control of the situation during the battle of life and death. I still need to create more pills. In that strange place, I only saw a door, but there were 15 small holes on the door. I was hesitant because I didn't have enough pills, but now I want to know what will happen to the door once I give away 15 scattering dusts. Su Ming mumbled to himself. I also need to create more scattering blood. This pill is my trump card. Also, I need to go back to the tribe. It's been a long time since I went back. The elder hasn't made much progress in his training over the years. Perhaps scattering dust will be of help to him. Su Ming stood up in silence. Once he moved his body, most of the fatigue in his body disappeared. He braced himself and immersed himself in the quenching process once again. He also continued training the blood in his veins. However, there were some parts of his body where his blood flowed unevenly. It was not as smooth as before. Su Ming guessed that it was due to the hidden injuries he sustained when he broke through the first level of the blood solidification realm. It would be difficult for him to recover within a short period of time. A month passed by in the blink of an eye. During that time, Su Ming went out a few times and even asked the little monkey to help him gather herbs. It was especially so for the red herb used to create scattering blood. Su Ming even went to collect 2 of them. He originally wanted to collect more, but he could feel a sense of danger from that place. After some hesitation, he decided not to be greedy. Using a large amount of herbs, Su Ming spent the entire month training his qi without eating or sleeping. He also created medicinal pills. The muffled sounds often echoed in the cave. One morning a month later, when the sky was just turning bright, Su Ming gave the little monkey a few words and went down the mountain alone, disappearing into the forest. In the forest, Su Ming, who had reached the second level of the blood solidification realm, was incredibly fast. He dashed through the snow like a flash. Before noon, he had already passed through the forest and appeared outside Dark Mountain Tribe. As he looked at the tribe in the distance, a smile appeared on Su Ming's face. It's been a while since I last came back. Su Ming strode towards the tribe. It was still the same in the tribe. There were many children playing around. Some of the tribe members were even sparring against each other. Su Ming's return caught the attention of some of the tribe members. After all, he had been gone for a long time. They greeted each other with smiles on their faces. Su Ming, you're finally back. Where have you been for such a long time? Su Ming patted a child's head. Just as he was about to go to the elder's place, a hearty voice came from behind him. When he turned his head to take a look, he saw that the one who had spoken was a well-built, large man. However, his somewhat young face revealed that he was not very old. He was Lei Chun. Su Ming looked at Lei Chun. He could clearly feel that the qi in Lei Chun's body was incredibly strong. It seemed to be even stronger than the berserker from Black Mountain Tribe he had killed with scattering blood. You're about to reach the 4th level of the blood solidification realm? Su Ming asked in surprise. Lei Chun grinned and walked to Su Ming's side. He spoke in a low voice. I feel like I'm about to reach a breakthrough. The elder said that the berserker blood in my body is very pure. If I have enough time, I can even reach the elder's level. As Lei Chun spoke, his eyes were filled with excitement. Soon he was stunned. He looked at Su Ming carefully and suddenly widened his eyes in disbelief. He was about to speak. Come to my place tonight. We'll talk then. I'll go and find the elder first. Su Ming knew what Lei Chun wanted to say. He smiled and walked towards the elder's house. Looking at Su Ming's back, Lei Chun was stunned for a moment. He scratched his head and mumbled to himself. He still could not understand what was going on, but he remembered that he had to go to Su Ming's place tonight. As he approached the elder, Su Ming's footsteps slowed down. There was a slightly anxious look on his face. Su Ming respected the elder who had raised him since he was young and taught him how to be a man. To him, the elder was like a grandfather. That kind of feeling could not be expressed with words. He did not want to lie to the elder, but there were some things that he could not tell him completely, such as the stone on his neck. Su Ming was not young anymore. He could tell that if anyone knew about this, then it would not just be a disaster for him, but for the entire tribe. He could not tell them. Su Ming took a deep breath and stood outside the elder's house. He did not go in immediately. He could faintly hear voices inside. It seemed like there were a few people discussing something. After waiting patiently for a while, the door to the elder's house was opened, and 3 men walked out. The 3 men were built like small hills, and when they appeared, Su Ming could clearly feel a strong pressure coming from them. The appearance of the 3 men even stirred up Su Ming's qi, making him feel as if he was about to be swept away by a storm. Su Ming took a deep breath and instinctively took a few steps back. The leader of the 3 men was the tribe leader of Dark Mountain Tribe. When Su Ming first saw him, he did not feel much about him. He only knew that he was the strongest person in the tribe besides the elder. But now, Su Ming had the power of the 2nd level of the blood solidification realm. When he saw the tribe leader of Dark Mountain Tribe again, the feeling he felt was much stronger than before. In his eyes, the qi within the tribe leader of Dark Mountain Tribe was so strong that it could shake the sky and earth. With a barely discernible mark on his face, it gave people a terrifying feeling. Su Ming also knew the 2 people beside the tribe leader. The man on his left was also in his 40s. There was a faint mark in the shape of a scorpion on his face. The qi within his body was so strong that it was second only to the tribe leader of Dark Mountain Tribe. The man's arms were also long, and he carried a huge bow on his back. For some unknown reason, when Su Ming saw the bow, he felt as if he could hear countless cries of pain. It made him feel fearful. The man was the head of the guards of Dark Mountain Tribe. The head of the guards was not a name. It was a title passed down through generations. There could only be one head of the guards in each tribe. It was a title given to the strongest archer in the tribe. The last person was the man on the right of the tribe leader of Dark Mountain Tribe. He was a man in his 30s. He had a wooden expression on his face and did not smile. His eyes were always squinted. Only a glint could be seen through the gaps of his eyes. It was difficult to see his pupils clearly. He was the chief of the hunters in Dark Mountain Tribe. He was in charge of all matters related to hunting in the outskirts of Dark Mountain Tribe. His name was Shan Hen. These 3 people could be said to be the strongest people in the tribe besides the elder. Su Ming took a deep breath and quickly bowed to the side. The tribe leader of Dark Mountain Tribe was frowning. It was clear that the conversation with the elder was not pleasant. He did not look at Su Ming when he walked out of the house. Instead, he walked past him. When the head of the guards with the bow saw Su Ming, a smile appeared on his face. He nodded and left with the tribe leader. As for the chief of the hunters, Shan Hen, Su Ming did not seem to exist in his eyes. He did not even look at him and walked past him. Once the three of them left, a glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes and a hint of uncertainty appeared in his eyes. He was puzzled. Even Lei Chun could sense the qi in his body, so why did the powerful berserkers from the three tribes not notice it? I'm the one who helped you hide your qi. Why aren't you coming in? Why are you still standing outside? Just as Su Ming was feeling puzzled, the elder's stern voice came from within the house. Su Ming lowered his head and walked into the house. You also know that you're back. The elder was dressed in linen clothes, and his hair was still tied with many small braids. His face seemed to have experienced the vicissitudes of life, but his eyes were extremely bright. Even though his tone was stern, the joy in his eyes could not be concealed. Su Ming mumbled a few words and lowered his head, not daring to speak. If you're so good, then you can stay away for months and forget about me. Raise your head and let me see you. There was dissatisfaction in the elder's voice. Su Ming's face was bitter as he lifted his head and looked at the elder. Before he could finish speaking, the elder, who was sitting cross-legged across him, suddenly narrowed his eyes. He lifted his right hand and seized Su Ming. Su Ming could not help but take a few steps forward, and the elder's right hand pressed against his chest. A gentle force seeped into Su Ming's body. Once it fused with his blood, it started circulating in his body. In an instant, it healed the hidden injuries that Su Ming did not even notice. It also healed the hidden injuries he suffered when he risked his life to reach the second level and went out to kill people before he could stabilize his cultivation base. When the elder withdrew his right hand from Su Ming's chest, Su Ming trembled. Without hesitation, he immediately took out a medicinal knife and cut open a wound on his arm. Immediately, black blood flowed out from the wound. There was a faint stench in the air. You haven't even stabilized your cultivation base, and you went out to kill people. You've really grown. The elder looked at Su Ming's actions, and the praise in his eyes became stronger. Even so, his tone did not soften. Instead, he took out a dark green bottle and handed it to Su Ming. Black blood flowed out from the wound. Su Ming immediately felt refreshed. He took the bottle and opened it. He dipped his finger into the liquid and smeared it on his wound. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.